Hey friends, welcome to SHIGARAKI. So today we are going to see, what if Deku became a Terminator? So before we start, check out my Patreon page for 18+ exclusive mature content. We will now proceed to the video. Here's the sad truth, all men are not created equal. I learned that at the young age of 4. I also learned that children are sociopaths and that I was not exempt from it. I was declared quirkless. That was the start of the first lesson. The start of the second came when my classmates found out. The nice ones felt sorry for me, the others wouldn't stop reminding me. There was no escape from the reminders that I was weaker than the rest, but what stung the most was my best friend becoming my worst bully. Katsuki Bakugo. We had such fun together before his quirk came in. After that his ego grew to legendary proportions. How do I know it was legendary? I'm talking about it. After such a betrayal I probably would have become a nervous wreck if it wasn't for that fateful day. Bakugo was trying to hurt another kid for something ridiculous. To this day I can't remember exactly what it was, the events after are more important. I was so scared. But I still managed to stammer out, "I'll stop you myself." Bakugo chuckled and monologued like the villains he wants to fight, but that's still not the important part. The important part is WH. It happened after the first explosion-powered hit landed. To this day those events are hazy, so I had to get second-hand accounts to tell you this bit. Bakugo's explosion went off in my face. The surprise was that my face was blown off. And underneath was revealed to be a gunmetal skull. Not a typical one, mind you. This skull looked like something a sci-fi fan drew while tripping. Space is missing. To make the overall structure lighter but still just as strong. Lips still intact but with the same gunmetal color that the knot bone had. My eyes though were the scariest. Gray sclera with a white iris and pupil. The eyes of a corpse. A mechanical corpse. I don't remember how it happened, but the next thing I could remember was Bakugo and his cronies crying and seeing the structure of my hands repair themselves. Like grains of metal sand blowing in the wind but moving towards the damaged areas in an organized mechanical manner. Covering them and then turning into normal skin. A teacher found us. Dragged everyone to the office. After the shock wore off, one thought was on repeat. I have a quirk. I was overjoyed. Then I looked at my 3 assailants. A new aspect of my quirk made itself known. I didn't just see the scuffs and bruises. I saw the veins, the muscle and the bones. The broken bones. I knew in some corner of my mind that I did this, and that joy I felt turned sour. Before I knew it, I was in front of Bakugo. "Are you okay?" "I'm sorry I did this, I don't know how I did this." Bakugo just looked at me in shock while I rambled on. Then he did something that took me by surprise. He smiled. "So Deku stands up for himself and gets a quirk from it. Had I known it would be that easy I would have blown your face off sooner," he said, still smiling. "But don't think this means you're better than me. I'm still going to be the best," he shouted with his soon-to-be signature scowl. After that he surprised me again by lying to the adults and saying we were just wrestling when my quirk showed up. The teachers looked skeptical, but no one said anything different. Once the meeting was over, the 2 troublemakers and friend were taken to the hospital and me and mom went to a quirk specialist. A different one. That trip was very informative. My quirk was a mutation type. Every single cell in my body was smaller than normal and composed of what the doctor dubbed machine phase matter. There was no known equivalent in the science community. While most people's cells are specialized, like bone cells versus skin or liver cells, mine were all the same multi-purpose cell. With prompting I was able to do some minor shapeshifting. When I turned my forearms into giant blades, my mom nearly had a heart attack. I could change my face, but only little things at that time, like shortening my hair or changing its color. When at rest my cells mimic the appearance of normal ones. With mom's reluctant permission we found out I could bleed, but the blood would turn gray and flow back in that weird motion. From that we learned that my cells hold themselves together within electromagnetic field. My medical record gained a note to keep me away from MRIs after that. X-rays didn't show anything but regular bones, leading to the conclusion that all my other internals were still the same unless I decided otherwise. On a whim the doctor asked if I could make my body flow like water or sand. I tried moving some of myself from one hand to the other, like tossing a ball. It worked and I got another glimpse at what my hand looked underneath. While everything looked, as I would later me to learn, like it would in a medical poster, Segments would go missing to generate the floating mass. These open segments, I would learn after much studying, were like the open spaces in an I-beam used for construction. When I mentioned my eyes, we had to do another slew of tests. Not that I was complaining, I wanted to see what I could do. Turns out I could see in every light spectrum and possibly a few other ways as well. After all the tests, the doctor concluded that the reason I still had an extra joint in my toe, we checked it was still there, was because my body was mimicking the origin human body before Quirks, and that I might one day be able to mimic other people down to the smallest detail. On the drive home my mom started to cry. I asked her what was wrong, and she looked surprised. "Guess we have to add super hearing," she said. I wasn't deterred though and asked again what was wrong. "Nothing is wrong, sweetie, I'm just so happy for you. Do you think I could be a hero, Mom?" I asked. Repeating that question I asked while crying and watching All Might Save People on the computer. She froze but relaxed and whispered, "Yes, I think you can become a hero." As the years went by, I practiced with my quirk and learned many things about it. Number 1, my limits were my imagination. The energy needed to shift my mass around was almost negligible. I never really seemed to get tired. Like my body had some other energy source or just used the energy from food more efficiently. Neither I nor the doctors could figure that out. Number 2, exercise was almost pointless. Exercise didn't affect my muscles the way it did other people. They didn't tear and build back up stronger. My muscles would always have a mechanically hard limit, but I could shift the structure of psi-D muscles to increase that mechanical limit, after lots of studying. Mechanical engineering. Super strength was added to the list of my abilities. Number 3, I will always win costume contests. My phase matter to form clothes and change them to anything I had seen before and make slight adjustments without the need of seeing an original. It was hard getting Mom to agree, but once I pointed out the savings on clothes she relented. Number 4, I am banned from karaoke competitions. I could not only mimic people after just looking at them, but I could mimic their voice after hearing only a sentence. I laughed so hard when Mom came home to find her favorite soap opera character sitting on her couch and just stood there trying to form a sentence. After a slap upside the head and a promise say to never buy liquor before it was legal, she congratulated me. Number 5, if it's got a hole in it, I can get through it. I can lower the strength of the magnetic field that holds me together to turn myself into a cloud of metal sand with weight. Or I could leave a bit of myself behind to push off of for a boost in speed. The effect was like a speed mirage. This increased my mobility in close quarters. Number 6, I can walk on metal walls. With my magnetic field I could magnetize myself to stick to anything with metal in it. Number 7, Kachan has the emotional range of a teaspoon and the emotional volatility of a teenage girl. I don't know how it happened, but our friendship seemed to mend itself a few years after I got my quirk. Maybe it was when we started sparring against each other. Maybe it was because I wouldn't let him get away with anything. Maybe it was because right now we were tied in our tally of spars. Maybe it was because whenever I got truly angry, I would go into what he called my killer robot mode, complete with machine corpse eyes. Haven't blacked out since that first time, so I chalked it up to just being because of my quirk coming in. Whenever I would call us friends, he would vehemently deny it, saying I was the only decent punching bag around. Eventually I got comfortable enough to tease him. Like when I found out that he deliberately makes a troll face because people have said one too many times he looks like his mom. That was a good day. Today started off with a bang. I got a front row seat to MT Lady's debut and made several notes on her quirk. One of my hobbies was picking apart new quirks. Whenever Kachan sees me muttering and writing notes in my quirk notebook, he says I'm going to eventually take over the world's WMDs and start Armageddon. I don't know where he gets his material, but his jokes are lame. Though I do wonder why he shakes his head after I point it out. Classes were normal, other than the teacher saying we should street art thinking about our futures and Kachan insulting the entire class, but even then, that's not something completely out of the ordinary. Hey Deku, don't forget about tomorrow's spar, alright? Kachan drawled. I haven't forgotten a single one, Kachan. So does that mean you talk to me after school because you need your dose of this wonderful specimen? I told you I can't return your feelings. I said. trying not to burst out laughing at my own joke. Like I would ever try and woo you. But hey, I forgot to ask, why do you keep using that wimpy look when you could buff yourself up with just a thought? He asked, showing his insight that most wouldn't think he had. In our last spar I had just perfected changing into other people in under a second. It was a big surprise to Kachan when he thought he was going to hit his mother. Unlike you, Kachan, I don't have a compulsive need to show off. I told you, a micro penis is nothing to be ashamed of. I must have used that one too much if the lack of reaction was any indicator. The reason I don't turn myself into a slab of meat is to keep the vultures off of me. I responded. Truth is, there was a lot of reasons for keeping this Skinner form. It was good practice to see how small of a person I could mimic, and no one pays attention to a frail-looking kid, just to name a few. I haven't told my friend yet, but I did spend a day with a different face and a stronger build. The number of harlots trying to get my attention was too much. Most guys would jump at the chance to have girls hanging off their arms, but it was more exhausting than it was fun. So, I haven't done it again since. After we parted ways, I made my way home. When I walked underneath an overpass is when things got exciting. I heard some squelching noise behind me. When I turned around to look, there he was. The ugliest villain I had ever seen, and that's coming from someone who will go out of his way to see a fight between heroes and villains. I could have gotten out the way, but I have never had the chance to test my quirk against living fluid before. If I still needed to breathe, then I would have been more cautious, but this was too good an opportunity to pass up. Once he got me, he tried to shove himself down my throat. The pervert. I quickly sealed off my throat with a shift of my phase matter, and every other orifice for good measure. Hey, why can't I take over your body? The sludge finally spoke. I though had had enough experimentation for one day. Every cement structure has metal rebar in it, and this walkway was no different. I magnetized my feet to it, dragging me down to the ground, and was about to keep walking when the hero the villain was muttering about showed up. Now I can see why he was running. If I had All Might on my ass, I would be NNING2 or asking for an autograph on my way to the slammer. It was a coin toss. Have no fear, you're safe, now that I am here, that is. All Might declared. If I was truly in danger, I probably would have been relieved to hear those words. As it was, my fanboy heart was aflutter. Well, it would be if it wasn't a solid mass of machine particles. After a few swipes from the villain, All Might yelled out Texas Smash, and while I couldn't feel it, I could tell from the vibration of the concrete under my feet that he just generated hurricane-level winds from one punch. It apparently was enough to SPL atter the villain, because I was now able to see in the normal light spectrum again. Good thing I was stuck to the ground, otherwise I would have went flying. Wow, I thought you would be out like a light with that villain smothering you. You're pretty tough, All Might shouted in his picture-perfect baritone. Sorry about that back there, I didn't mean to get you caught up in my justicking. Usually I pay more attention to keeping bystanders safe. But it turns out this city's sewer system is pretty difficult to navigate. He continued, followed by his signature laugh. Anyway, you were a big help. Thank you. I've captured the evil doer, he said with 2 soda bottles filled with villain. Either he was so fast I couldn't see it, or I was too distracted to catch him do it. I know it's corny, but I was eating it up. He is so much cooler in person. Could you please sign my notebook? I asked with absolutely no crack in my voice at all, and if someone says otherwise, they won't find the body. Certainly, he replied and walked up to me while I held out my notebook. That's when I saw it. Through clothes and skin, I saw the wound on his left side. Well, I've gotta get this guy to the police so they can take care of him. Stay out of trouble, see you around. You're leaving already, I blurted out. Pro heroes are constantly fighting time as well as enemies. He replied while stretching. So, mething about that time comment bugged me. Now stand back, I'm taking off. Just as his legs were fully extended but before he left the ground, I made a split-second decision and grabbed onto him. He got out a, thanks for your continued support, before he realized I was on his leg. Hey, what do you think you're doing? Let go. I love my fans, but this is too much. Clearly this was a reflexive response. And what happens if I let go this high up? I asked. I would survive, but he didn't need to know that. Oh, that's a good point, just keep your eyes and mouth shut. Unneeded, but I appreciated the sentiment. That's when I heard him cough and whisper, "Shit. Not a very smart move, bang on the door for a while, someone will let you in. Considering the hole in your side, are you really someone who should be talking about smart moves?" I asked. He froze on his march to the ledge. "My quirk affects my eyes. When you signed my notebook, I saw all the internal damage and I wanted to ask you. How do you do it? How do you continue to smile, to be the #1 hero despite how much pain you must be in?" I asked. Before he could answer, he started to steam like a smoke bomb while groaning. The results were more surprising than the wound I was talking about. Gone was the titan covered in muscle, and in its place stood a bag of skin and bones. I have so many questions now. So, do I kid? But to answer your immediate question, you know how guys at the pool are sucking in their gut and flexing, I'm like that. He said, not that it actually explained how his muscles changed their mass like that. I would know. That's a hard limit of my quirk. I'm counting on you to keep your mouth shut. Don't go talking about this online or telling your friends. If I was going to do that, I wouldn't have told you or grabbed your leg. I shot back at the cripple. What? Kachan rubbed off on me. Fair enough, it happened 5 years ago when I got into a big fight. Do you how bad the damage is? He asked. I focused more on his side and started listing off what I could see. Your respiratory system is in shambles, your stomach is just gone, and judging by the internal scar tissue you have had multiple surgeries that have exacerbated the damage already there. What is left looks like it was stitched back together by Dr. Frankenstein. I don't think Toxic Chainsaw could have done this. I finished. Wow, you really know your stuff, and yes, that punk may have landed some hits, but he couldn't bring me down. Not that it matters, I can only do hero work for about 3 hours a day now. Rest of the time, this is what I look like. I knew that All Might was less active in recent years, but I didn't think it was only 3 hours a day. I thought he was tough before, but this takes it to a whole new level. You asked me how I do it. The answer is fear. I am afraid of what the world will look like after I hang up my cape. Crime rates dropped when the mere mention of my name GHT hope to people and fear to criminals. The symbol of peace doesn't do the burden justice. I keep going because I am afraid, and I smile to hide that fear. He declared. Most people would have retired right after getting hurt so bad. But he has kept on outshining everyone else with one lung and no stomach for years. His title is well earned. If only it didn't come at such a high cost. This job is tough. Heroes are always having to risk their lives, so we don't like it when civilians make that job harder by jumping and thinking we will save them. He lectured. Not going to lie, that stung a bit more than I would like. He left after that. I was going to follow until I heard an explosion in the distance. I left to see what was happening, but I was going a little slower, digesting what All Might said on my way there. It was the sludge villain that tried to hurt me from before. He must have fell out of All Might's pockets when I grabbed onto him. The guilt twisted my gut. Why though were the heroes just standing there? Don't hero schools teach them how to adapt to situations that don't favor their quirk? That was my last rational thought before what I saw next. Kachan was in that villain's grip. Why am I running? I couldn't remember starting, but with my friend in danger it didn't matter. I could hear the supposed heroes yelling at me, but it didn't matter. I let my body decompress itself to what it was supposed to be, gaining almost a foot in height and about 20 pounds of visible muscle. My speed increased with the length of my legs. My backpack was behind the safety line, so I grabbed a piece of building the size of a baseball and threw it at the villain's eye. Threw isn't accurate. I launched it just a few foot per second shy of the slowest bullet. The sludge villain's eye was a mess. Blood and pieces of said eye were gushing out, and Kachan was almost entirely out of him. I used my speed boost to cover the rest of the distance. Without a second to think about it, I grabbed my friend by the back of his collar and threw him towards the heroes, because I wasn't going to be able to stop or dodge the villain's payback for the eye. He didn't show that he was kappa BLE of making stabbing implements before, but the lance of sludge going through my back and out my chest said differently. He must have been really pissed cause he started to ragdoll me into every hard surface he could find. Good thing I was made of metal, or else I would be a bag of pulp by now. He held me up in front of the frozen heroes like a trophy. It was then that I decided to stop playing possum. Again, Stuck myself to the metal rebar under the cement, twisted around to face the sludge villain, and cut the tendril stuck in my back off with a newly formed blade from my left arm. He and the heroes were so shocked nobody knew where All Might came from. I really am pathetic. I told you to stay out of the way of the heroes. But I see now I wasn't living up to my own ideals. Pros are always risking their lives. That's the true test of a hero. He loves his speeches, not that I was complaining. Detroit Smash was all the warning I got before even stronger winds than last time hit me like a sledgehammer. This time I couldn't stay put and got pushed down and back to where I threw Kachan. Once the wind died down, it started to rain. I was in awe at how much force it would have taken to change the weather. People started to cheer, but it was quickly stopped when someone shouted, "Is that kid who got stabbed alive?" The crowd started to murmur and panic. Me and Kachan stood up almost at the exact same time, giving everyone a perfect view of the hole in my chest. There was no blood, just gunmetal gray phase matter filling in the grievous injury. The damage from getting thrown around was already taken care of. Even All Might was slack-jawed. "Hey Kachan, can you see my heart?" I asked in fake concern. "Shut up, tin can, you know you don't have one," was his reply. Our banter got the crowd out of their funk and the cheering recommenced, louder if possible. The villain was gathered up and taken into police custody where he belongs, and the heroes tried to chew me out. "Can it, windbag?" I snapped at Death Arms. "Unless the police have charges they can lay against me that don't drag your useless names through the mud, you can shut up about how a student did the pro's job for them." While they waited for someone with the right quirk to show up, I took their stunned silence as my cue to leave, shrinking down to my school size as I walked. Kachan though was in hysterics. He was laughing so hard from my speech. Asshole. I was in the residential area when today's last surprise decided to show up. "I am here," my favorite hero shouted while making a dramatic entrance. His over-the-top performance was getting old. "Oh, who am I kidding, it's never going to get old for me." "How did you get rid of those reporters?" I asked. Ha, ha, I stand for justice, not sound bites. Because I am all MI, and that's when he deflated and spewed a rather alarming amount of blood. I admit I screamed a little. Once he was done hacking up his other lung he spoke. "Young man, I came here to thank you." "Huh," was my intelligent reply. "If you hadn't run into that fight, I would have been a worthless bystander, watching from the crowd. So, thanks." "Oh, no. It was my fault he was there to begin with." I apologized. What I really felt bad about was wasting his limited hero time. There are stories about every hero. How they became great. He started. Most have one thing in common. Their bodies moved before they had a chance to think. Almost on their own. He continued. And today, that's what happened to you. Hearing this from my idol was filling me with something I couldn't describe. If I could, I would be crying right now. "Young man, you can become a hero." That did it. I was on my knees, head face down, filled to the brim with emotion. "I deem you worthy of my power. My quirk is yours to inherit." Over the top bag of bones, say what? After lots of explaining I accepted All Might's offer to inherit his quirk. I was already going to try and get into the hero business. So, unless there was some real mean villain that knew about the nature of his quirk and had a hate on for it, I couldn't see any downside to it. Also, my inner fanboy would have started a riot if I turned it down. And I don't need split personality syndrome. But being out on this beach moving an old refrigerator with him on top of it made me question his sanity, or rather, his attention to detail. "Wow, you're pretty strong already," he shouted, but that just sent the alarm bells in my head a-ringing. "Why do you have me dragging garbage across the beach?" I asked, fearing I already knew the answer. "Ha, ha, take a look at yourself, you're not ready for my power," he answered while taking photos. First time I ever felt bad about keeping this skinny form. My quirk, one for all, is a whole lot to handle. The combined physical abilities of everyone who's ever used it creates a hurricane of pure force. An unprepared body can't fully inherit it. Your arms and legs would shoot off if you tried to. He continued. "So, this whole trash thing is a hardcore gym workout?" I asked, getting more concerned. "You got it, but there's another reason, too. I did a little online research yesterday. Turns out this part of the beach used to be beautiful, but it's been a total mess for the last few years." He dented the refrigerator he was sitting on. Illegal dumping and ocean currents collected and moved it here. Heroes these days are all about showing off and capturing flashy villains. He started to crush the fridge. Things were different before Quirks. Service is what mattered. Back then, heroes were those who helped the community. Even if it was kind of boring. Don't know how, but when he flattened the fridge, the garbage behind him took off like it was afraid of him. You will restore the coastline for this entire section of the beach. That is the first step on your path, young man, towards being a hero, he declared. Normally I would be in an otaku coma by now, but necessity breeds sass. Did you come up with this before you looked up my quirk? I asked. Was my idol's response. I thought heroes had access to the quirk registry. I pressed. We do, but only if we re-looking into someone for investigative purposes. Looking up random citizens' quirks is not only not allowed but raises red flags. He replied. Is your quirk not some regeneration power? He asked. No, my quirk, machine phase matter, is a mutation type that has a lot of applications. I explained. With that I changed into a perfect replica of All Might, including his current clothing. I have control of my entire body on the cellular level, and one of the drawbacks is that I can't build muscle from working out, but I can change my shape to increase my load capacity. I said in a perfect imitation of his voice. His surprised face was something that I would never forget. This entire exercise is pointless if the only goal was to make me ready for your quirk. I'm either ready for it or I am not. I finished, switching back to my skinny form. He went silent for a minute after that. He did eventually speak. I see. Well, we will need a specialist's go ahead before I can give you my quirk. I just so happen to know one who also knows about One for All. He declared. Oh, who is this specialist? I asked. The pro-hero recovery girl. He replied. If I had blood it would have froze at those last two words. All Might, please tell me that you didn't just say that recovery girl is the only doctor who can determine if I can handle One for All. I begged. All Might was alarmed by my reaction, but if what he said is true then I don't feel bad about it all. Do you have some sort of history with her? He asked. Do I have a history with her? A few years ago, my regular physician had asked her to consult on some of my test results. That was the first mistake. Letting her call the house phone was the second. That woman became obsessed with my revolutionary physiology. Her passion was extremely unsettling. In fact, me and my mom both agreed to cut her out of the loop. That was the third mistake. The letters and callbacks were bordering on harassment. After the threat of a lawsuit was uttered, we agreed that she could send one letter a year and we would not press charges. Mom didn't want to give any ground, but I pointed out that she was the nurse of the school I wanted to get into. And it was easier to play nice. Also, despite how off-putting her mania was, she is one of the best doctors in the country and her status as a hero pulled on my heartstrings. Besides, it wasn't agreed upon that I was obligated to read her letters, just receive them. I told All Might this and he looked like a light bulb went off. You're the God's gift to science and medicine, she rambles on about when I have to go to her. He exclaimed. Probably, was my flat reply. Then I'm sorry young man, but she is the only doctor alive who knows about One for All. If there was another with her skill set and knowledge, I would go to them. He apologized. With that he escorted me to my funeral in a nondescript car, probably to keep his identity and location a secret. I didn't pay attention to anything. Not even my dream school could drag me away from my panicked thoughts of what kind of test she would try to slip in. All Might knocking on her office door though, was like a bucket of ice water. Oh, Toshinori, what a surprise. You aren't due for another week, she said in her sweet grandma voice that could put people at ease, but I knew better. I didn't even register All Might's real name. Yes, well I chose a successor. All Might began. Really? That's great, but why do you need me? Don't tell me they've already hurt themselves because of your stupidity, she shouted at the end. No, in fact I'm being cautious. I'm not sure my successor could handle my quirk, given his own quirk, and I wanted your medical approval before I gave it to him. Oh, then where is he? She asked. That I stepped out from behind All Might. It was difficult hiding behind his skinny form, but fear was a great motivator. As soon as she saw me, we both stiffened. For what seemed like an eternity neither of us spoke. Brat, she said in a cold tone completely different from her granny persona and in my opinion her true voice. Which was my mature response. So, your fanboy nature finally bit you in the ass. She replied smugly. I was honestly considering turning down All Might's offer if it meant I could get away from her, but my respect, yes respect, not worship, of All Might stayed my feet. Yes. So go fire up your gingerbread oven, or do you have to go out on your broom to get more children? I shot back. Oh, don't be silly, you'll do. Was her chilling response before she turned around. I thought you were joking. All Might said. There are two things I don't joke about, hero merchandise and that green-skinned goat. I hissed. We followed her into her metaphorical gingerbread house. She sat on a chair next to a bed. You could sit on the bed if you want, but if you're more comfortable standing, I understand. She said, back in her granny voice. Just to prove her wrong, I sat on the bed. What followed was the typical examination during a physical. It was pointless given that I don't have a heartbeat or blood pressure unless I want to, and my lungs were just for speaking. I think she was just trying to put me at ease, but I wasn't going to let my guard down. Once she finished with the pointless test, she got to the uncomfortable stuff. Before our talks went south, I heard about a battle mode. It strips down your body to only things you need in a fight and increases your strength and speed. She asked. Yes, I responded curtly. If you could show me, it would give me a better idea of what's actually going on. She said. My battle mode, as it was called, was something that I didn't have to think about to form. It was strangely instinctive, like my base form. Skinny me takes conscious effort. I haven't found a way to improve it, strangely enough. My curiosity about it was what allowed me to nod my head in acceptance. I grew taller and more muscular than even my base form. Skin and hair retracted to reveal a body structure not possible for anyone else. I looked like a robot's idea of what the human body should look like. I'm not normally self-conscious about how I look now, but given who my audience is, I felt strangely naked. Ironic considering that when I'm like this I don't have reproductive organs to be embarrassed about. All Might's slack jaw did give me a little ego boost though. The feeling of a thin piece of metal in between my sci-fi ribs interrupted my preening. What are you doing? I asked pointedly. Checking if you're hollow or if your organs are still there. She replied. Well, next time you decide to probe me, buy me dinner and then ask. I shot back. But then I wouldn't know if you could feel the probe. She returned. I can guarantee you that I can feel everywhere that probe is touching and that it feels weird. I stressed. Oh God. Is it vibrating? I shrieked. That's the ultrasound, not many people can detect such high frequencies. She explained. Not that it helped. All right Sonny, I think I have everything I need. She said while taking the metal rod with a cord attached to a computer out of my side. I shifted back to my base form, and after a few seconds of waiting, All Might sat next to me. Is this how you normally look? He asked. Yes, I use the skinny version to train my shapeshifting and to keep the shallow females at my school away. I replied. He nodded in understanding, probably thinking about the All Might bunnies that have popped up on occasion. Yes, that's what they call themselves. Alright, so here are the results. I used that modified ultrasound to get an image of your internals. Aside from really small lungs, your chest cavity and abdomen are a honeycombed flexible mass. Your cells are still L-shaped like cells but smaller and denser. She explained. From the tests I did on All Might, one for all stores itself in the cells of its holder. Given that your cells are superior to a normal humans, I am confident that you could inherit the quirk without it damaging you. At least until you use it for the first time. She tacked on. Wait, you couldn't have found that out from the probe. Was it even necessary? I asked. I was confident that you could inherit one for all before you walked through the door. That probe was just to confirm that you didn't have any weak points in your body structure that the quirk might strain. She replied smugly. Damn, she dodged the bucket of water again. I muttered just loud enough for her to hear. I had a speech about hard work and how you earned my power. But it looks like I'll have to use something else when you finish cleaning up the beach. We can still use it as training with one for all. All Might interjected. It was then that he buffed up and pulled one of his hairs out. Without further ado, eat this, he declared. I took one look at the greasy hair and wondered if the witch had any more probes she wanted to use. Dagobah Beach. After eating a disgusting, product-covered hair and a ride back to the beach, we had about a minute before I digested the hair and gained one for all. When I take on a human form, I create a stomach organ that somehow draws energy from food without acid. So, when you get my power, you're going to try and use it on the ocean in front of us. We were standing in a small cleared spot on the shoreline. When you go to use it, clench your butt cheeks and yell from the depths of your heart, smash. He shouted, turning into his buff form at the end. What if I don't have butt cheeks? I asked puckishly. Then make some and clench. Until you've had some practice, that's the only advice I can give you on how to activate my power. Each user of One for All is different, so you're going to have to figure out how to limit how much you use on your own. Quote, great. Well, you should have digested the hair by now. How you feel? He asked. I don't feel any different. Guess my body can contain One for All. I said. Great. Well then, take her for a spin. All Might encouraged. I squared off my stance and clenched my butt cheeks. Yes, I do have them, rather nice ones I might add, and I yelled with all my heart, smash. For what felt like an eternity but only lasted a few seconds, the ocean was split in two as far as the horizon. When the waters came together, I noticed the lack of weight on my right side. Turns out, using One for All at full throttle overpowered my magnetic field and turned my arm up to my elbow, into dust, and the outer layer up to my shoulder was gone, revealing the techno muscle underneath. This self-destruction only happened after the punch landed, so to speak. I would have panicked, but the dust that was my arm was putting itself back together. Midoriya, All Might yelled. It's all right. It's fixing itself already, I assured while showing him my slowly regrowing stump. It was going to take 5 minutes to completely repair itself. Guess the phase matter was dispersed pretty far. In a fight, 5 minutes was an eternity. Unless I could overcharge my magnetic field with One for All or find some other solution, I was going to have a problem. These next 10 months were going to be a pain in the ass. My prediction was correct. One for All was the Quirk equivalent of an angry bull. After months of practice, I was only able to use about 2% across my whole body without disrupting its integrity. My magnetic field was able to use One for All to increase its charge, but for some reason getting it to do more than slightly increase it was proving difficult. With the practice taking time away, I was only able to finish cleaning the beach close to the end of our 10 months of training. Also, my friend Bakugo noticed that I had less free time to spar with him. Thankfully, he bought the excuse that I was working on a new application of my quirk and wanted to keep it a secret for when we eventually competed against each other in UA. So, to summarize, One for All wanted to use too much power to attack and too little to charge my magnetic field. Kachan was almost too perceptive for my own good. UA's entrance exam was just around the corner and the beach was spotless. So, I am laying in syringe-free sand the day before the exams, trying to both figure out why One for All was being difficult and forget about everything and relax so I could enjoy the moment and rest before the exams. It was at this point All Might showed up. Hey, shouldn't you be at home resting or doing something fun at least? All Might asked while changing into his hero form. Just thinking about the last 10 months and enjoying the hard work put into this place, or at least trying to. I said somewhat bitterly. Your progress with a new quirk has been more than acceptable, young Midoriya. Perhaps you've gotten used to excelling in everything and that's why you're frustrated with your actually quick progress. All Might queried. I thought about it and couldn't say he was entirely wrong. I was a late bloomer. But when my quirk came in, I blew past everyone. Only Kachan was able to keep up with me. Could it be because I had someone right next to me who picked up skills just as quick? For the same goal that my self-expectations became unrealistic. So, in actuality my progress is closer to yours than I was thinking. I asked my predecessor. No, I was able to use One for All at its maximum right away. But I was the only one of us who picked it up almost instinctively. He replied, well, that was the worst pep talk ever. If I act like the fanboy that I am, do you think I will get better service? Eventually I and All Might had to go home, and sleep eluded me like Peace did at the beach. Yes, I do sleep. Your phone has to be turned off occasionally, to keep glitches from happening. Stop laughing or I'll get Siri to terrorize you. Day of the exam. Now that I don't have to go to the witch's office, I can appreciate the grandeur of UA. The building was both impressive without being excessive. Lots of elite schools around the world had famous architects design a stunning building at the cost of inflating their maintenance costs. Concaved windows and cleaning atypically shaped rooms adds up. UA was blocky but vaguely shaped like the H in Hero. It sent a message of practicality and an independence from having to market their own school. If you stand there all day, you'll miss the exams and I won't have my favorite punching bag on hand. Kachan jabbed, shaking me out of my thoughts as he passed by. Then the unthinkable happened, I tripped. I was going to catch myself, but someone did it for me. Are you okay? A female voice to my left asked. She had brown hair and a seemingly permanent smile on her face. She repositioned my weightless body back in a standing position. I stopped you with my quirk. I'm sorry I didn't ask first. But I figured you wouldn't mind me catching you. She continued. Isn't this all, way nerve-wracking? She asked, her smile cracking to show anxiety. Yes. And people pulling pranks doesn't help. I added. Huh, was her reply. I knelt down to the stone that tripped me. To anyone else it looked normal and completely level with the rest of the walkway. I, however, could see the mechanism to raise it when someone steps on another stone so that it could be hidden. I formed points on my fingers shaped like cool crowbars and shoved them into the space around the stone. My brown-haired savior was alarmed by my vandalism. Until I pulled out the stone along with a mess of wires and other bits of machine. If someone wanted to be an ass, then I would happily spite them. I turned around but she had already left after my destruction of the sidewalk. Too bad I didn't get her name. Exam hall. I am not going to survive the first year. Is every teacher at UA a pro hero? It was a perfect decision to have present Mike do the announcements, though, I think the rest of the faculty would be hard of hearing after someone tries to tell him he can't be a public speaker. The written portion was easy for someone who can interface with any piece of technology he touches and hide his phone inside his thigh. First time I tried that I found out that turning off the vibrate was very important. Mike's explanation of the practical portion was straightforward, but the zero-pointer was bugging me. Oh well, nothing I can do about it. What I could do something about was the guy with a gray to stick up his ass. Honestly, Mike was trying to get people to shout and I'm the problem. My scathing retort explaining as much was enough to shut him up and get chuckles from Kachan. I think he plans to convert me to his crass ways, but I will remain strong. Battle center. Poor cement toss. They must work him to the bone to set up all these mock buildings. Right, let's start. Present Mike shouted, and with that, I was too focused on finding villains to hear the rest. Spotting them was easy when you can see through walls. Dismantling them in a timely manner when you can see the power source and have sparred for years with Kachan the Barbarian is child's play. I stayed in base form and used my 2% of one for all to go through the robots like a meat grinder. Kachan would probably make some wisecrack about how I was murdering my own people. Well, he would if I didn't make it very clear how much I didn't appreciate it the first time. That was also the day he first used the term killer robot mode. He's so silly sometimes. A big boom knocked me off balance after I destroyed a three-pointer by caving in its power supply. My total was up to 76, but that was the least of my worries. The zero-pointer was significantly bigger than we were led to believe. I was going to follow the remaining faux villains until my sensitive hearing picked up the sound of a girl in distress. My eyes found her through the dust kicked up by the broken buildings. It was the girl from the front entrance. Her leg was caught under some rubble, minor fracture. Even if she does get the concrete off, she's a sitting duck and the zero-pointer will crush her. 50% will get me up to the zero-pointer's face, the location of the CPU. 50% also won't completely destroy my legs, I hope. No time to think about it. I jumped. Within second I'm right in front of the zero-pointer's array of cameras. Just as I'm about to collide its metal face, I let my right fist fly and my fist is no more. But a decent amount of my arm is still there minus the outer layer, about 2 minutes for a full recovery. If I was made of flesh and bone, I would have had to use full power to achieve a similar result. But with a metal arm and half power, the zero-pointer was toppled and the chassis for its head was compromised enough that when it collided with the ground it crumpled like a house of cards. Now I'm falling. My legs had more time to repair themselves than my arm, but they still can't support my weight. While I was thinking of a way to land without causing any more damage to myself, someone else was already implementing their own I could have done without the bitch slap, but beggars can't be choosers. Her quirk must do more than just negate gravity. If it was just gravity negation, then I would have hit a building with the same force I would have hit the ground after she changed my direction with her slap. G-force still E. Exists in zero gravity and air friction against a weightless mass wouldn't have slowed me down like that. She must have used the last of her strength to save me cause the piece of robot she was floating on and myself fell and she started throwing up rainbows. How many Pop-Tarts did she eat for breakfast? My legs weren't ready to support my weight, so when I suddenly landed on them, they broke like what I assume a normal person's would if they fractured their bones. Trying to catch my fall with my right arm had similar results. I've gotten into the habit of forming clothes first before fixing tea. Internal damage to put people at ease while I self-repair. Kachan had mentioned how cool it looked and I knew it would be off-putting to most people. While I was slowly putting myself back together, I heard her voice again. My, you sure made a mess of yourself. Recovery girl said. Nothing I can't fix. Just give me a few minutes and I will be back on my feet. I replied. You know, this will be the perfect time to see if my quirk can help you. Recovery girl offered. She is sneaky. Playing off of my own curiosity to perform one of her own little experiments. Didn't change the fact that I nodded my permission. Now if only she didn't say, give me some sugar, before she used her extending lips to kiss my shoulder. The sensory input I got from her quirk was interesting. My magnetic field didn't change its power output. But my phase matter repaired itself faster than I thought possible. Could there be actual cell damage when I get hit? Then the fatigue hit me. What a novel experience. I haven't felt a change in my energy levels since before I got my quirk. As soon as it came it disappeared, must have been the sudden increase of energy usage rather than a depletion of my reserves that cause it. Like turning a stove on when you're using a small generator cause the power is out, but then that would mean that I'm more like a power plant than a rechargeable battery. Questions for another day. I thanked Recovery Girl and told her what happened before I left. The questions that resumed running through my head made me giddy. Could I overclock my body without Recovery Girl to do it? What kind of backlash would happen if I sustained it for too long? And how long would be too long? This tirade was interrupted by a single stray thought. Again, I forgot to ask the nice girl what her name was. The results of the entrance exam could not be more amusing. The addition of rescue points was the piece of the zero-pointer puzzle that I was missing. Now if only Kachan would stop chomping at the bit. He was 1 point ahead of me in villain points. However, he was busy getting those last points while his testing area's zero-pointer was rampaging. My rate of villain kills was higher than his until I decided to save the nice girl. If we tack on my 60 rescue points, I came in first in the entrance exam, but who had more villain points was a gray area for Kachan, and gray areas are a loss in his demented brain. If he weren't the only honest friend I had, then I don't know if our quirky friendship would have lasted. Most people exaggerate when they say all the kids at school are shallow assholes. I, however, performed a social experiment. I shape-shifted into a moderately good-looking guy for my class's age group, told them I had a weak face-changing quirk and behaved like my normal self. While quirks have become a new measure in social standing, the tried-and-true perfect body can make up for that. So, given that I wasn't going to see any of my classmates after middle school in my new perspective of children, I didn't hang out with anyone. I was by no means socially awkward, they just weren't worth my time. Figuring out my quirk, and recently, All Might's was a much more productive use of my time. I'm starting to sound like my only friend, but he had the same kind of mindset as me, though he would interact with the hanger-ons if it meant less hassle. But things are different now. It's a new day and a new school, and I can't keep isolating myself. I was doing away with the skinny disguise. Given the rigors of the entrance exam, it was doubtful that any gold diggers would be in our class. Turns out me and Kachan are in the same class. You packed everything right, not just action figures. My mom teased as I was trying to get out the door for my first day at UA. Yes, Mom, and you know I haven't brought any of those to school since elementary. I replied. With your obsession, I was just making sure none of them fell in. It would be quite embarrassing if a girl found one in your bag. My mother continued. She had gained a bit of weight when we thought I wasn't going to get a quirk, but with that stressor gone she bounced right back. Now she lives to try and get me to socialize more. Not the I want grandkids obsession, but I think that will rear its ugly head after high school. Izuku. What? I groaned out in typical teenage fashion. I'm really proud of you, son. She softly spoke. Don't matter how old or tough you think you are, if you have any love for your mother then she can curse you with the warm and fuzzies with just a sentence. Provided you aren't Kachan and his mom. I'll see you soon, I answered. Ooh hi. I want to know who it was that was so tall without actively using their quirk that Ua was required to put in such tall doors. I would be too thin if I tried to stretch myself that far. Oh well, time to see who I will be spending a lot of time around for the next 3 years. Take your feet off of that desk now. Son of a bitch. Lawful good characters always think the chaotic good or evil. Ignoring the spat between those two, I took a glance at everyone else. There was such a variety of people in here that it made my middle school look like a military school with its uniformity. I almost didn't notice Tenya Iida. I caught his name while scoping out the crowd. He was walking up to me and doing an incredibly good impression of a robot. If I didn't know that he hasn't seen what's under my skin, I would be wondering if he was trying to push my buttons. Hello Iida, I'm Izuku Midoriya, I said before he could try to introduce himself again. Midoriya. You realized that there was something more to the practical exam, didn't you? You must be very perceptive, and I completely misjudged you. I admit, as a student you are far superior to me. Wow, he's serious. Hey, I recognize that messed up hair. Falling boy. A familiar female voice exclaimed behind me. In my holographic acceptance letter, they showed her trying to give some of her points to me after the exam. Never thought someone other than mom could curse me with the warm and fuzzies. While I was trying to think of something to say to the motor mouth a yell, Low Caterpillar decided to lay himself out in the middle of the hallway. If you're just here to make friends then you can pack up your stuff now, the caterpillar spoke. It was then that Iida and the GIRL whose name I don't know yet spotted him. For some reason they were acting like he was a ghost or a monster. It's just a guy in a sleeping bag. Welcome to UA's hero course. He continued while sucking on some juice packet. It took 8 seconds before you all shut up. That's not going to work. Time is precious. Rational students would understand that. My brain was currently cycling through its vast hero catalog to find this guy. He must be an underground hero if it was taking me this long. The hobo costume didn't help though. Hello, I'm Shota Aizawa, your teacher. Right, let's get to it. Put these on and head outside. He delivered, declaring himself the king of deadpan. My only guess is that we were going to the sport field outside for some sort of quirk assessment, given his lack of concern for a traditional teacher persona and his comment on rationality. I was ahead of everybody, so while everyone else went to the locker room I walked straight to the field, shifting my uniform into the gym clothes he presented. My quirk is such a cheat code. Our teacher quirked an eyebrow when I showed up way before everyone else. That's interesting. If he had read my file, which should have my quirk given, I'm in the hero course. Then he should know that I can change my appearance and clothes on a whim. If he didn't read mine, then perhaps he didn't read anyone else's. Why would he not take the time to read our profiles? Unless he thinks it's a waste of time, but that would mean that he doesn't expect everyone to make it through the first day. What is he planning? The nice girl was pointing out that we were going to miss orientation. I don't think he cares about any kind of decorum until it becomes a necessary evil. If you really want to make the big leagues, you can't waste time on pointless ceremonies. Aizawa spoke. Most of the class gasped at that. Did they think that the best hero school in the country was going to follow the norm? Granted, a villain must have knocked a few of this guy's screws loose, but still. Here at UA, we're not tethered to traditions. That means that I get to run my class however I see fit. More gasps. You've been taking standardized tests most of your lives. But you never got to use your quirks in physical exams before. The country's still trying to pretend that we are all created equal by not letting those with the most power excel. It's not rational. One day the Ministry of Education will learn. I honestly don't agree with that. A government is built upon equal and/or fair treatment of everyone, at least on paper. While letting people excel is fine, there always will be consideration for the underachievers. Currently that would be the quirkless. While rare, they still do exist. Excluding them or those whose quirks are weaker will lead to a divided society and send us back to the time when quirks were first discovered. Public schools can't function if not standardized, and the bar must be set for the lowest to be able to pass. That's why private schools exist. It's why UA exists. The private sector has always had a higher standard and given out scholarships for those that can't afford tuition. UA has abandoned the FIAL altogether in favor of a merit system and whatever funding the board and principal have come up with. My big brain still hasn't cracked that one. But in short, Aizawa should get off his high horse. Bakugo, you managed to get the most villain points on the entrance exam. What was your farthest distance throw with a softball when you were in junior high? He asked, breaking me out of my thoughts. 67 meters, I think. My friend replied. I could see the small frown he had at being reminded that he didn't get the top score overall. Right, try doing it with your quirk. Shota commanded. It seemed that Kachan wasn't moving fast enough. Anything goes, just stay in the circle. Go on, you're wasting our time. Alright man, you asked for it. Kachan replied. I was surprised he wasn't more vocal. Given the extra heat he added to his throw, I retract my previous thought. 705 meters was impressive. Some of the class were showing their excitement at being able to use their quirks as much as they want. This wasn't going to end well. So, this looks fun, huh? You have 3 years here to become a hero. You think it's all gonna be games and play time? Idiots. Today you will compete in 8 physical tests to gauge your potential. Whoever comes in last has none and will be expelled immediately. That got my attention and everyone else's. Like I said, I get to decide how this class runs. Understand, he stressed. To add to the intimidation, he held his hair out of his eyes and gave a creepy grin. He would do well as a drill sergeant. If that's a problem, you can head home right now. He finished. The nice girl was the one to voice what some of us were thinking. She has the heart of a good hero, but I begrudgingly have to agree with our teacher on most of his points. Oh, and you think natural disasters are? Or power-hungry villains? Are catastrophic accidents that wipe out whole cities? No, the world is full of unfairness. It's a hero's job to try to combat that unfairness. If you wanna be a pro, you're gonna have to push yourself to the brink. For the next 3 years, UA would throw one terrible hardship after another at you. I hate that I agree with him. So, go beyond. Plus, ultra style. Show me that it's no mistake that you're here. Honestly, he's like an All Might fan who got blown off and now acts all emo about it but still uses his lines in a twisted fashion. I don't know how to feel about that. Now then, we're just wasting time by talking. Let the games begin. He finished. Up first was the 50-meter dash. With the threat of expulsion, everyone was getting creative. A guy with a laser coming out of his belly button turned around and used it to propel himself faster than his legs could have carried him. Now if he weren't such a tool I would be impressed. 50-meter dash. Fate was smiling on Kachan today. We were paired up for the first event. Ready to lose Deku? He challenged. Not really, but that won't stop you from trying. Tell me how the view from behind me looks. I retorted. On your mark. Get ready. Go. And with that we took off like bullets. I was using one for all at 2%. If I didn't weigh 400 red pounds of metal, 2% would have me moving at blinding speeds. As it was, I was only able to keep ahead of Kachan by a small margin. 4 seconds versus his 4.13. Damn, it was his choice of expletive. How did you get this much faster, Deku? He shouted. Later, Kachan, we have other priorities. I dodged. TCH, fine. He conceded. Grip strength test. The grip strength test was more of my wheelhouse. I managed to beat the 6-armed guy by about 60 kilograms at 600. I am a living machine after all. Kachan didn't even try to compete. He knows from all the B mission holds I've used in our spars that once I get a hold of someone, the only way they are getting away is if they cut off the limb I have in my grasp. Which is why I could never take any of those old movies about machines taking over the world seriously. The infiltrator units had limbs of steel and would throw their target around. Once you have a grip on your target, you either break said limb or snap their neck. Okay, now I can see what Kachan is talking about when he says I turned into a killer robot. Standing long jump. He did beat me at the standing long jump. I was still above others who Eldent enhance their jump with their quirk, but curse you my fat ass. I must have said that last bit out loud cause Kachan is laughing. People asked him what was so funny, but he just blew them off. Goo. I'm a little embarrassed about my weight now. Repeated side steps. Repeated side steps were another one that I took to like a fish to water. I was moving so fast that my classmates thought I was leaving after images. Too bad they were a little more solid than they thought. The short kid with the grapes on his head beat me though. Softball throw. There was no way I was going to get the top score for the softball throw after the nice girl sent hers into orbit. But I was still going to try. Maybe 50% again. It wouldn't take more than a couple of minutes to recover, and I don't need my arm for the long distance run or the sit-ups. By then I would have it back for the seated toe touch. Decision made. I started to wind up with 1 for all at half power. But then 1 for all left me. What the hell? Phase matter was working perfectly, but 1 for all is gone. The power is still there, but I can't reach it. That was the final piece of my teacher's hero name puzzle. So, you're a racer head, I said while lowering my arm. Ball still in hand. The judges were not rational enough. Someone like you should never be allowed to enroll at this school, he said. Perhaps he didn't hear me. Either way I was pissed. You're not ready. You have no self-preservation and you don't have full control of your power. Were you planning on breaking your bones again? Counting on someone else to save your useless body? He asked. Apparently, he wanted an answer if the half-second silence was any indicator. Sorry, I thought you were being funny, I mouthed off. His scarf was pretty damn fast in the FA court that he could move me was even more impressive, so much so that I let him drag me towards him. Doesn't matter what you think, fact is you would be nothing more than a liability in battle. You have the same reckless passion as another overzealous hero I know. One who saved 1,000 people by himself and became a legend. But even with that drive you're worthless if you can only throw a single punch before breaking down. Sorry Midoriya. With your power there's no way you can become a hero. I couldn't help it. I started laughing. No, I was in hysterics. This guy was the funniest thing I have ever seen since Mitsuki Bakugo learned to tease. My sudden fit stopped his monologue. This was going to be good. I knew from your quirked eyebrow when I first came out onto the field that you didn't read any of our quirk profiles. That got both eyebrows up. If you had, then you wouldn't have been surprised at my speed in getting out here. You think that my quirk is a strength enhancer that's all over the place, don't you? News flash. That's just one application of my quirk that I have been theorizing for about 10 months before the exam started. Now his face was shocked. I wasn't able to saint it out until the 0-pointer showed up and the Infinity Girl was trapped under rubble. I didn't know it was going to break my limbs the way it did. That was the only time I have used that special move and I haven't had a chance to try it again. He switched to suspicious. How about we up the ante? I know that you are considering expelling me whether I am dead last or not. What I did in the my estimate was only half of how far I can take that move. I'll use it full power so that we both know what we are dealing with, and then I will subdue you, and if you struggle, I will take you to Recovery Girl afterwards. Despite how injured I will be. The creepy grin is back. I enjoy taking arrogant brats like you down a peg. We can do that, but you set up the ante, so what do you want if you win and what will happen if you lose? He asked. Well, Pot. This kettle asks that if he wins you hold off on expelling anyone until you have a more substantial reason, and if I lose, not only will I drop out of the hero course, but I will refrain from applying to any other hero course in the country. How does that sound, Sensei? I asked with the flourish of a supervillain. Sure, that works. He released his scarf and his eyes stopped glowing. You've wasted enough time, get it over with, he said, back to his slothful persona. This was going to be fun. Ochako Uraraka Pav. This can't be happening. That green-haired boy must be insane. Subduing a pro-hero. The blonde-haired bomber was laughing like the green-haired one. Maybe he knows something. Excuse me, Bakugo. Do you know what's going on? I asked him. He stopped laughing, though it took some effort. Still grinning like a madman, he answered. We are going to have a front row seat to a first-year student beating down on a teacher. He said. Deku has some hidden power that Mr. Aizawa doesn't know about. I asked. His name's Izuku, I've been calling him Deku since we were 4 and he has more tricks up his sleeve than even I know. He always keeps his hand close and doesn't show everyone his cards. Wow. What I do know is that Teach's quirk is useless against Deku and it will only be a matter of time before he gets a hold of him and from personal experience. Once he grabs you it's over. That was high praise coming from this loud and rude person. I wonder how they became friends. Izuku threw the ball and what a throw it was. At least the same as his friends. I only got a small glimpse but was his arm gone. Then Mr. Aizawa pounced like a big jungle cat. Izuku was wrapped up in our teacher's scarf and his quirk erased. It must be a capture weapon, that scarf. Before Mr. Aizawa could speak, Izuku made his move. He dissolved into a gray cloud of sand. Weird sand. He moved up the scarf and were those blades in the cloud of Izuku. Mr. Aizawa wasn't expecting that if the shock on his face was genuine. The blades were shredding the scarf. Mr. Aizawa was smart though and abandoned his capture weapon and backed away. Izuku. Reformed from the sand like in some sci-fi action movie. This must be the true power of his quirk. He crossed the remaining distance in a flash and teacher and student engaged in CQC. Or, more accurately, one of them tried. Izuku paused. I have to give credit where credit is due. Eraserhead doesn't give up easily. If I didn't destroy his capture weapon his combat effectiveness would be a lot higher. Right now, though, he has been reduced to the damage he can inflict with his arms and legs. And if it weren't for my immunity to blunt force trauma, I would be in for a world of hurt. His style is brutal and effective. Right now, I was letting him ragdoll me. The white-hot sensation in my left arm told me a simulated bone was broken. Then my right leg and jaw snapped. In under a minute I was left a broken heap on the ground. Pride goes before the fall. Aizawa declared. Funny, I was going to say the exact same thing. I replied, my voice distorted by my healing jaw. With that, I used my magnetic field to lift myself up like a marionette by its strings. The effect was a movement that was completely unnatural, topped off with a mechanized groan. Shock was the general response. I've often wondered, is the pain I feel real or just a trick of memory from when I was less? I continued, snapping my left arm out to realign the simulated bone to both speed up recovery and create a metallic snapping noise to further intimidate Aizawa. My right arm was still missing a hand, but the forearm understructure was back, my leg and jaw were finished realigning. I could switch to battle mode to say the outer shell to make a new hand, but that would be overkill and something I wanted to save for later. Doesn't matter, because now it's my turn, and I don't feel pity or remorse for what I am going to do. I stated. Now the real fight has begun. Before I just let Eraserhead beat down on me. To get a feel for his style. Now that I had that information, the fight was in my favor. I still could. Use one for all reliably with his quirk in the mix, and I didn't want to do permanent damage. My strikes with my left fist still hit like a truck when I'm holding back though. And they were fast. Faster than Aizawa. If it weren't for his years of experience and battle-honed instinct, I would have hit him early into our fight. He couldn't land a hit either. Using my phase boost I could slip out of the way of his punches and kicks like water. It was a battle of attrition. Something that I could outlast even Kachan at. My muscles don't fatigue, my energy doesn't waver. I am a living weapon with a single goal and more time to achieve it. A single misstep was all I needed, and it inevitably came. He was a moment too slow to get out of the way and my punch grazed his shoulder, knocking him off balance. He would only need a similar moment to recover, but he wasn't going to get it. Completely dispersing and reforming my body in front of him with my fist cocked back saved me those precious seconds I needed to take advantage of his momentary unbalance and ram my fist in his gut. He was sent flying. Not extremely far, but the force needed to lift a full-grown man off his feet in the SP. And of a few seconds would leave minor internal bruising. Had I used velocity rather than power, the damage would have been much more severe. Before he could get off his back, I planted my foot on top of his chest. So, do you still think I would be a liability in battle? I asked, and to further drive home the point, literally, I shifted my now mostly healed right arm into a blade and pointed it at his throat. Laughter was not what I expected from someone being held at sword point, but that's what I got. All right, I give, uncle. He spoke. I took my foot off Aizawa and offered him my right hand to help him up. I'm nothing if not sportsmanlike. When he got back on his feet, he held my hand a little longer, examining the still exposed phase matter of my hand. Not that I could blame him. It's been 11 years and I still find myself mesmerized by the structure of my limbs. Go, we still have to get through the rest of the tests. He drawled, letting go of my hand. I wasn't fooled. I leaned in and whispered. I'm impressed that you can keep a straight face with that internal bruising. FYI, I can also see through walls and people. With that I walked back to the rest of the class. The rest of the events weren't as exciting. If you discount a girl in the body of a model pulling out a scooter to use in the distance run, of which I beat Kachan in and was told to stop in sit-ups. Plus, seated toe touch was easy for a shapeshifter. I said they weren't exciting, didn't I? All right, time to give you your results. I've ranked you all from best to worst. You should probably have a good idea of your standing already. I'll just pull up the whole list. It's not worth going over each individual's score. Aizawa monotoned. I knew that he was just trying to get it over quicker so that he could visit the gingerbread house. First Momo Yaoyorozu, second Shoto Todoroki, third Izuku Midoriya, fourth Katsuki Bakugo. The rest I didn't pay attention to. I couldn't find a fault in the top 4 rankings. At least based on what I displayed. Momo could make any kind of equipment for any given situation. Bandages and silver nitrate were more valuable than a combat powerhouse when civilians are her. T and EMTs are minutes away when seconds count. Shoto has more ranged options than I do. In a head-to-head I probably could beat him, but on a simple what we are capable of scale he is above me. Thou. Why he didn't use the other half of his quirk I don't know. Something to do with heat if his weird body temp on my heat vision was any indicator. Third and fourth was just personal bragging rights. What about your bet with Midoriya? The spiky redhead shouted. I was lying, no one's going home. Wow, that shit-eating grin was gold. That was just a rational deception to make sure you gave it your all in the tests. I'm surprised the rest of you didn't figure that out. I'm sorry Midoriya, guess I should have said something. Momo apologized. What for? I just asked for that safety net too. Get the conversation over with, and he's lying about how close we were to expulsion. I dropped with the subtlety of a WMD. What do you mean? The nice girl now known to be Ochako Uraraka asked. Our puckish teacher expelled his entire class last year on the first day. I shouted. There was a collective shout of disbelief. So, given his history of expelling both the entire and none of his class, he was most likely looking for something beyond our physical performance. Not that it wasn't informative to him. My guess is that he wanted to know how we would perform under pressure. If anyone Brock or didn't take his threat seriously, they would have been kicked out even if they were first place. Did I get it right, Aizawa? I asked. Yes, you did. If I didn't see any potential in any of you, I would have expelled you like last year's batch. He confirmed. Dead silence was met with that revelation. That's it, we're done for the day. Pick up a syllabus in the classroom. Read it over before tomorrow morning. Aizawa finished, or so I thought. Midoriya. I hate long pauses, get to the point hobo. Good job, not many understand the value of secrets and surprises. You could be a good underground hero. If you make it past tomorrow. He jabbed at the end. Damn it, I'm starting to like him. I have to get the last word in somehow. You have no idea, sensei. I spoke using a perfect imitation of his voice. His head whipped back so fast after he stopped his walkout that I was wondering if his bones were rubber. My only response to his incredulous face was my own shit-eating grin. Two could play at this game. Aizawa Pav. Izuku Midoriya. He's a wild card. That little voice trick was a taunt. He's still not shown everything he can do. Having a hidden ace in this business can mean the diff. Rents between life and death, but here at this school it makes it difficult to tailor our training approach to him. A problem child if there ever was one. I accept your challenge, problem child. All PR. Why out every secret power you have before the semester is out? Now what could that media magnet of a new teacher want? Wouldn't surprise me if he were picking favorites already. The problem child might be mine, for now. Doesn't matter. Picking favorites is illogical. Our class was let out early given it was the first day. I, however, was asked to go to the principal's office before I could leave. I must have set a new record. Nezu was a very obscure hero. His identity was almost entirely entrenched as the principal of UA. In fact, he only had about a week between getting his hero and teaching licenses and taking a teaching position at UA. Any noteworthy achievements of his happened as a teacher. But I know the key things for this conversation. High spec is his quirk, granting him genius level intellect, and his time as a lab rat has left him with a sadistic streak I do not want to be on the receiving end of. I knocked on his office door and waited. Kachan hasn't destroyed my manners, despite his valiant attempts. "Come in," was his reply. His office was decorated in a typical academic way. PhDs and other accolades lining the high shelves. He couldn't see any of them while walking on the floor, so they were placed purely to intimidate anyone else coming in. "Ah, Mr. Midoriya, please sit down." I complied. "I'll skip asking if you know why you're here and just get to it. Your homeroom teacher reported that you knew who was expelled in his class last year. Those records are confidential and kept off any of our servers for security purposes. The question is, how did you do it?" he questioned. That look in his eyes was what put me at ease. It was the look of a mad scientist who had just found something unexpected. A new discovery. If he were recovery girl, I would be run. But his history with illegal experimentation and his dedication to teaching gave me confidence in what he was thinking. "You're happy it was me who broke into your records and announced it so blatantly?" I asked, already knowing the answer. Perceptive too. "Yes, I am. It's not every day that I get to upgrade the security system because a student beat it. Normally when that happens it's because a dangerous villain found a way in and I have to worry about what they took. This is a breath of fresh air compared to that mess. So, I'm not in trouble?" I asked. "On the contrary, I think I might get you to test our security regularly if you could move so easily through the campus without getting caught." He almost squealed. If I didn't have an inner kleptomaniac before, I sure do now. Now back to my original question. How did you do it? Your quirk registration must be out of date because I couldn't see anything on record that could have gotten you past the key-coded doors. The principal asked. Well, and with that I shifted into All Might's skinny form. It's pretty easy to get another copy of your codes when everyone knows you're a new teacher, I said in the number one hero's raspy voice. How ruthless. Using your predecessor's weakened form to achieve your goals. I love it, the sadistic little varmint replied. I'll let the other teachers know of your side project, no punishment will be necessary for this incident. You may leave Mr. Midoriya, have a good day. Nezu concluded. Just as I was about to grab the doorknob he spoke again. By the way, I will have to inform your homeroom teacher of our conversation today. Damn, and here I thought I got away without repercussions. Point to you Aizawa. It only hit me that the principal knows about One for All after I shut the door. Kachan had other errands to run for his mom. He may talk a big game but when she says bring back milk, Kachan brings back milk. Turns out me and Iida both use the train to get to school and I was just listening to him ramble on about how the first day went. My earlier assessment of him was spot on, lawful good. Who critiques the teachers? But, today wasn't done throwing me surprises. The nice girl uses the station as well. Her name is Ochako Uraraka and she is so adorable. I have never said that about a member of the opposite sex, and I don't think anyone will ever be able to come close to her on the adorable scale. She is so genuinely bubbly that she could give puppies on speed a run for their money. All in all, I think the first day of UA was a success. The second was less so. Mornings consist of regular courses. English, math, etc. Lunch was served in the cafeteria. They have heroes working the cafeteria. I'm going to let that sink in for a minute. The hero lunch rush, who is known to provide food to disaster victims in record time, works in UA's cafeteria when the weather is nice. The afternoon however was reserved for the class that we all went through that over-the-top entrance exam for. Hero Basic Training, taught by my idol, mentor and soon-to-be predecessor, All Might. I'm here, coming through the door like a hero. He shouted. Sometimes I wonder if beneath all that muscle is a teenage female pop star given that he is hanging onto the edges of the door while on his tiptoes thrusting everything forward. Then he starts walking like he's a soldier marching during drills and I figured he was just nervous about his first day teaching. When in doubt play to your strengths and his was most certainly theatrics. Everyone else was gushing too much about him. Actually teaching to pick up on his distress. Welcome to the most important class at UA. Hi. Think of it as Hero-ing 101. Here you will learn the basics of being a pro. And what it means to fight in the name of good. Let's get into it. Today's lesson will pull no punches. And this is where he pulls out a flash card with the word battle stylized on it. Kachan couldn't help growling out fight T. Raining like a hound chomping at the bit. But one of the keys of being a hero is, looking good. He said while gesturing to the wall to our left. Perfectly timed, sections of said wall extended out with numbered boxes in them. These were designed for you based on your Quirk registration forms and the requests you sent in before school started. He announced, followed by cheering. Get yourselves suited up and then meet me at Training Ground Beta. And with that he left in a flash, probably to take a break from his muscle form to conserve time. While everyone was crowding the suitcases, I was making my way to the door. Midoriya, aren't you going to grab your costume? Ochako asked, followed by half the class turning to look at us. My costume is not here so I was going to go grab it. I'll meet you guys at the training grounds. I lied smoothly. Oh, please Deku, are you going to keep this up? I thought you were done hiding. Kachan added. I am Kachan, it's going to be a surprise. It's training so it would be detrimental to everyone if I were to try and hide my capabilities until the exercise started. I shot back. You mean you're going to use that? He asked. Yes, I am, to be honest I don't know why you like it when I leave so much skin on display Kachan unless there's something you're not telling me. I teased. You know damn well that you don't expose any skin, nice try. Though, he said without even a hint of a blush from embarrassment. I miss the days where I could derail him with my remarks. Especially when he wants to get me to do something I don't want to do. Eing as I didn't need to change into a costume, I made good time getting to the training ground and met up with All Might. Still in my uniform. Still haven't decided on a costume yet young Midoriya. The number one hero asked. As soon as I get close to something I like, I change my mind like a squirrel. I've narrowed it down to either good-looking biker leather or a futuristic design. For today I'll just use this. And with that I shifted into my battle mode, matching All Might in height but leaner on the muscle. Skin gave way to gunmetal gray anatomy that while anatomically correct had synthetic detailing that made me look more badass. My reproductive organs weren't on display, so I felt no embarrassment about how I looked. All I felt was pride in my capabilities and eagerness to learn. Sparring with Kachan has given me an appreciation of a good fight but ultimately, I want to be a hero to help people. To make them feel safe when bad things happen. Beating up villains for me is the half of a marble cake that you tolerate at first but eventually start to like a little. I heard my classmates coming out of the changa room. My back was to them and I held that position a little longer than normal. All Might got the idea and remained silent. Guess he loves a good plot twist like me. When the last one made it out, I turned around and was greeted with slack jaws. Everyone was staring at me. Sir, are you bringing in another pro to help supervise? Ida's voice said, coming from the robo-race car. Kachan couldn't take it. His laughter was loud and followed by him rolling on the ground. It was so disruptive that it took All Might a few seconds to respond. No, young Ida I have not. He will be participating in this exercise. He declared. Wait a minute, he's a student. Kirishima exclaimed. That was my cue and I added a metallic synthetic effect to my voice. I'm a little hurt that you guys don't recognize me. Kachan did. I hinted. It was beautiful. The whole class in sync exclaimed. Midoriya. No. It's the robot uprising, of course it's me. But you don't look like you. Was Kirishima's reply. I always look like me, except when I look like you. I said an H. Halfway through talking I changed into a perfect copy of Kirishima. Any jaws that just got off the ground were promptly back on said ground. Kirishima however was grinning. Twice the manliness. He exclaimed. Yes indeed. I replied, grabbing him in a friendly headlock. While doing so I whispered my plan to him, and he shook his head in enthusiastic agreement. Let's play a little game guys. I announced puckishly. While heads were tilting I twirled myself and Kirishima to make it impossible for anyone to follow me. At the end of it we stood side by side with a hand on each other's head. Which one of us is the real one? Kirishima pulled off that twin speak perfectly. The class started to mumble until the girl with pink skin walked up. In middle school a scary guy tried to hurt me and another classmate of ours. You jumped in to protect us, right? She asked. No, I didn't, I was too scared at the time and it is one of my most embarrassing moments. I cut in before my copied victim could reply. Kirishima was staring at me in stunned silence while Mina approached him. Good thing he saw her in time to harden himself before Mina's uppercut could land. It actually lifted Kirishima off the ground. That's for making me embarrass my friend. She shouted. You got the wrong one, Mina. Kirishima yelled while showing off his hardened chin. What? She replied in shock. You lose. I intoned while placing a newly formed blade hand on her shoulder from behind her back. Once she got a look at me, I changed back to my battle mode and returned my hand to normal. The moment felt like an eternity but was broken by All Might. Good job, young Ishido. Normally that would be the perfect way to figure out who is the fake. Midoriya, care to explain how you knew the correct answer? All Might asked. My quirk, machine phase matter, allows me to weakly sense electromagnetic energy. While my hand was on Kirishima's head, I was able to interpret his brain's activity and read his present thoughts. Once she asked the question he thought about the answer and I knew what to say. However, I had to be touching his head too. Pull off that magic trick. I replied. My last few words brought the whispers down to a lull. Guess people were worried I would find out their search history. Well, all except for one. Now that you're ready it's time for combat training. All Might cut in. Sir, this is the fake city from our entrance exam. Does that mean that we'll be conducting urban battles again? Iida asked, identifying him as the Mech Knight. Not quite, I am going to move you 2 steps ahead. Most of the villain fights you see on the news take place outside. However, statistically speaking, run-ins with the most dastardly evildoers take place indoors. Think about it. Backroom deals, home invasions, secret underground lairs. Truly intelligent criminals stay hidden in the shadows, he lectured. For this training exercise you'll be split into teams of good guys and bad guys and fight 2-on-2 indoor battles. All Might added. Isn't this a little advanced? The frog girl asked. The best training is what you get on the battlefield. But remember, you can't just punch a robot this time. You're dealing with actual people now. He replied. After that, the questions came too fast for anyone to answer. Kachan's question of how much can we hurt the other team was amusing. All Might was even growling under his breath about how he wasn't finished talking. Then he pulled out a script. A script. The situation is this. The villains have hidden a nuclear missile somewhere in their hideout. The heroes must try to foil their plans. To do that, the good guys either have to catch the evildoers or recover the weapon. Likewise, the bad guys succeed if they protect their payload or capture the heroes. Time's limited so we will choose teams by drawing lots. All Might declared. Isn't there a better way? Iida asked. Out in the field you rarely get your choice of who to team up with in an emergency. Best not to get into the habit of always doing hero work with the same people and become dependent on them. I replied. Yes, bad habits are the enemy. Excuse my rudeness, Iida said while bowing. No sweat. Let's draw. All Might replied hastily. Probably to try and get through the class without deflating. I don't know how to feel about getting Ochako as a partner. On the one hand the eye candy is appreciated but how good is she in a scrap? Maybe underneath that bubbly smile is a mean bitch. Why does that thought send a shiver down my metallic spine? I declare that the first teams to fight will be these guys. My team versus Kachan and Iida. Christmas came early. Teach, can I jump out the building and take him on outside? Kachan shouted with a little bit of desperation. Kind of defeats the purpose of indoor battle so no. Why may I ask, do you want to fight young Midoriya in the streets? All Might asked while a little baffled that the class pit bull seemed scared. Our classmates were in the same boat. We would spar all the time when we were in middle school and we found out that anything short of a demolition blast doesn't slow me down and dropping the building on my head is just going to be annoying. I answered. We had to make a new rule in our last year where if he could keep away from me for 5 minutes he won after a few too many times we had run from the local authorities when Kachan's explosions got too big. Well young Bakugo, like your friend said. No bad habits. So, you're going to have to get creative if you want to win this battle. Heroes don't always get to lead the villain to a more advantageous area, so we have to make do with what we got. All Might concluded. And with that the villains were led to the building to begin prepping for our arrival. You think they expect us to memorize this building's floor plan? It's so big. Uraraka asked and I couldn't help but cut in. I already have. Really? Is it because of your quirk? Is your brain a computer? She asked with such energy that I almost couldn't believe it. All brains are computers, mine just happens to be made of metallic cells and good at retaining information. That's cool, but what is your quirk? We're a team, so maybe you could spill some secrets. I know the rest of the class can't stop talking about it. My entire body is made of multi-purpose cells composed of machine phase matter. Hence the name for my quirk. Every cell in my body can perform all of my bodily functions. Shooting me in the head doesn't cause me to black out like others with a self-healing quirk. I can shapeshift into anything as long as there are no complex mechanical parts or a need for other compounds. So, you couldn't turn into a gun or a bomb? She inquired. No, and V. Ickles are out too, but someone always makes a Transformer joke every few months. Alright, let's begin the indoor combat training. Team A and Team D, your time starts now. With that we entered through a window on the side. I could make a plan of attack, but with so many variables and no real estimate of Iida and Uraraka's combat capabilities, that plan wouldn't survive first contact. Then there was Kachan. He has never failed to surprise me in all of our sparring sessions. Either with a new technique or with his sheer tenacity. I mean, who takes a metal right hook to the face just to set an explosion off on someone's junk? Though I got the last laugh because it didn't work. Anyways, we continued down the hallway and not even 5 minutes in, Kachan destroys the wall next to us. Probably trying to take out my partner. I will never figure out how he knew we were there, even I can't see through these reinforced walls. His plan didn't work though, as I had just enough time to cover her with my body on the floor. The remains of the door bouncing off of me like they were made of rubber. Go, I will deal with him and then catch up, I assured Uraraka. She nodded, and as soon as got off of her and into a crouch she was gone. Leaving me with the human pipe bomb. You'll deal with me, he growled. I'm up by 10, aren't I? I jeered, standing up, relaxed. The crotch shot doesn't count. He snapped. Turnabout's fair play, I countered. Doesn't matter, cause right here right now, I'm going to win. He declared. Weren't you just shaking in your boots about taking me on indoors? I asked, honestly confused by the display of fear. I've been trying to get you to show off your true strength for years and you finally do it, and you didn't think I was going to pile on? Kachan asked while smirking. That floored me. And once I thought about it, the light bulb went off. You used your own reputation to bolster mine, I whispered. The following head shake and shit-eating grin made me realize how infuriating it could be. And when I beat you like a Cherokee drum, I get all those representative points back with interest. He sing-songed. The world righted itself when he said that. I don't actually believe him. But the statement was in character for him. I had no more time to think about our soap opera when he sent a good-sized explosion my way. The battle had begun. While his explosions couldn't hurt me, they could stop me for a second and push me back if they unbalanced me. This one was meant to obscure my vision. Something in the chemical makeup of the smoke he can make with his explosions interferes with my enhanced vision. It helped me train my reflexes, and a tried and true method of catching him when he does this is to simply charge ahead and interrupt his sneak attack. This time was different. I didn't find him on the other side of the smokescreen. He ran away. The world didn't make sense again. Why would Fight Night's poster boy run away? Aside from make the enemy eat dirt, he never has a plan. Unless he does have one. Stalling for time and guerrilla tactics. I didn't think you had it in you. And I seriously didn't, but this exercise added a different objective and Kachan was using that to his advantage. Do I focus on catching him and wasting time, or do I try and move on and let him plan his next sneak attack? With the capture tape rule, he could actually take me out of the exercise if he's willing to use it. I was so focused on how to fight the mortar-turned-landmine that I almost forgot the obvious. I don't have to fight him. The goal is to get to the bomb, not take out the villain. Curse you, Kachan, for giving me your tunnel vision. I don't have time for this. I growled out. No matter how tough you make a building, you have to have ventilation to keep up. The airflow and I am made of metal sand if I want to be. The air duct was above me and a small jump away. It looked like I was being beamed up. The cursing I could hear before moving to the next floor was such sweet music. After getting some distance I reformed and put the earpiece I carried with me into my ear to call my partner. "Uraraka, where are you?" I asked. "Near the middle of the 5th floor. Iida found me but he's monologuing right now." "Perfect," I said. That was about all the time I had before Kachan jumped out from behind cover with his gauntlet primed and pointed at me. He was too far away for me to stop him. All I could do was listen to All Might tell him he was going too far, and Kachan say that this was only going to slow me down. Doesn't mean it's not going to hurt like a bitch. Control room. These two are interesting. Bakugo may act like a fight-happy maniac but underneath he's a sharp one and his instincts for combat are unheard of. Which came first, the tactician or the rabid dog? Doesn't matter. Midoriya is far more dangerous. My father wanted an heir with 2 opposing quirks and here's someone with one that has so many different uses that he may as well have multiple quirks. The irony. A body that's sturdier than steel but more malleable than sand, perfect body mimicry and shapeshifting with tactical mind reading as well. If that's not enough he also has enough strength to nip at All Might's heels. Makes me wonder if my ice could actually hold him. Bakugo just released an explosion strong enough to shake us all the way over here. That much force might have actually hurt Midoriya. When the smoke cleared there was no sign of Midoriya. He definitely wasn't dead if how fast his arm grew back on the first day was any indication, but could there be a limit to how much his body could take? Bakugo walked about halfway down the destroyed hallway when we got our answer. This wasn't the limit, it was a trap. Midoriya didn't reform right away. He used his dispersed particles like a killer sandstorm, passing through or around Bakugo's back and delivering multiple blows on the way, reforming in front of him. With Bakugo leaning forward and off balance, he couldn't move out of the way from Midoriya's hammer fist. If the blow itself didn't knock him out, then his head hitting the floor finished it. Bakugo never used the comms they were given and Midoriya was taking advantage of that. After removing it from his opponent's ear, he morphed into a perfect copy of said enemy. He even got the damage to Bakugo's hero costume right. The comms were tied into this room so we could hear Midoriya fooling Iida. I finally beat him. Hall monitor. You done with the other one yet? He growled out in a perfect imitation. Not yet but I can keep her away from the bomb until time runs out my villainous partner. Midoriya stumbled when he heard that. Weird. Why would that make him pause? Either way he recovered quickly. Bah, I'm coming back to get this over with. It's no fun if I can't pummel Deku. Quote. Iida had no clue that he was being played. An even more embarrassing mistake with the show Midoriya put on before the exercise. The sneak attack that won the match for the heroes wasn't worth remembering. Aside from Midoriya coordinating with his partner to make sure that Iida was near the stairwell so that he didn't have to fake any attacks on his partner to keep up the ruse. He held Iida in a headlock while Uraraka ran to touch the bomb. Iida tried to break free, but he did more damage to his costume than he did to Midoriya. Hero team wins. All Might announced. Classmates cheered but I had other thoughts. Midoriya, you're the first step on my path to being number 1 with my mother's ice and her ice alone. After All Might announced the winner, some medical bots came out to cart my best friend to the which they call a nurse. In order to save my friend, I had to reveal Kachan's unofficial secondary quirk. Kachan, you lost. I shouted as loud as I could. Like fuck I did, he screamed while sitting up ramrod straight. We discovered this little quirk when I accidentally knocked him out the first time we sparred, and I mentioned that he lost to me to the paramedic. I think the poor EMT was close to a heart attack when my friend, like just now, bolted upright shouting his denial. All Might still wanted him to go in case he had a concussion. I had to explain that it was practically impossible for Kachan to ever get a concussion. With all the practice we put in, our bodies adapted to the strain our quirks put on them. For me, the muscle memory of moving every little piece of me increased and Bakugo's internals became so resistant to concussive force that in order to damage him internally you either had to stab him or hit him with enough force to get past his resistance. By that point though you're going to be shattering bone. In short, the force needed to give him a concussion was greater than the force needed to cave his skull in. Only reason I was able to knock him out was because the way his head hit the ground. The force flung his body over his head and his incredibly sturdy spine stopped any breakage, but the stress on his nerves overloaded them, resulting in his previously unconscious state. In short, me and my best friend got to watch the rest of the fights, and I had another point for why restrictions on quirk use should be lessened. Part of the reason that people's quirks are so detrimental to their health so quickly is because they don't practice with them a lot. A child with wings who flies to school is going to be stronger and healthier than the same kid with the same quirk who takes the bus instead. A former classmate of mine had wings and was overweight, case in point. The four of us plus our teacher just made it back to the monitor room where the rest of the class was waiting. The MVP of this exercise was a tie between Midoriya and Iida. Can anyone guess why? All Might asked. Sir, I can tell you why, Momo declared. Iida embraced this challenge. He was the only one who truly adapted to his assigned role. The only mark he has against him is that he didn't consider Midoriya's shapeshifting. Midoriya also only has one minor slip when he wasted time trying to fight Bakugo rather than going for the weapon, which he later did. As you pointed out earlier, launching a large-scale attack indoors was a foolish move. It could have been disastrous, eliminating Bakugo from being MVP. As for Uraraka, she let her guard down mid-battle and had to rely on her partner's sneak attack to recover the advantage she had. She finished. You did miss a few things. Young Iida could have relaxed in the exercise, but otherwise you nailed it. All Might replied. I actually disagree with one point of her assessment, I added, silencing everyone. Go on, my predecessor encouraged. Everyone has been assuming that our time limit is because if we fail in that time the bomb goes off and unleashes nuclear hell, correct? I asked. All our classmates nodded. Then, aside from the fact that this is a training exercise, what incentive does the villain team have to value their personal safety? Even if they access to a warp quirk to get clear of the blast the instant it goes off. The chance of the heroes being able to disable the bomb within that time is too great for them to leave it to chance. Odds are that those who are guarding it are willing to die to set it off. If Iida is getting points for staying in character, then Bakugo should at the very least not have it held against him for almost blowing up the building. I pointed out. Destroying the building and taking out the heroes eliminates the possibility of someone disabling the bomb, and damage to the weapon is more likely to set it off. Then disable it, so Bakugo's over-the-top explosion was actually the best move he had when he couldn't guarantee the weapon's safety from the heroes. I finished. You are also correct, Midoriya, though a bit extreme. I should have been more clear on the villain's objectives to avoid such a hazardous assumption. From now on the timer is not a countdown to detonation but how long the villains need for their warp quirk to recover for another jump to get away. All Might declared. I don't need you defending me, Deku. Kacchan shouted. Good thing I only pointed it out to avoid any more explosions. Walking boomstick is all I can handle in my life. Everyone chuckled at that. Once the commotion of getting the next team selected and sent out died down, the tall hottie approached me in the back of the room. That was very insightful of you, Midoriya. She spoke. Thank you, but I didn't do it to defend my friend. God knows he needs to learn that dropping a building on it is not the solution to every problem. Then why did you do it? She asked. All Might. I replied. All I got was a raised eyebrow. He has many accolades to his name, but his teaching license is honorary. He is doing exceptionally well for someone who has no formal teaching experience. But he is assuming that his students will be able to follow his unsaid direction when it is his job to guide us through something we have no clue how to do. I replied. You were trying to help him be a better teacher. She queried. A young teacher asked her elementary class to do a creative writing assignment about someone being in a new and strange place. She wanted a story about how this school is scary and I hope to make friends. One kid gave her a graphic depiction of a squid dying in a forest. She gave a little snort at that. But in our case, All Might wanted us to face off against each other in an indoor battle with a half-baked scenario that was open to interpretation with a very real bomb with an attitude problem. That room for interpretation just about had a building dropped on 4 students and 3 would have been injured or killed from it. Do you by chance dislike All Might? She asked almost innocently. My brain actually stalled for a moment. I'm sorry, did you just accuse a shameless All Might fan of not liking him? Was her intelligent response. I'm kidding, not about the shameless fan part but the indignation. I clarified. Before our conversation could continue, All Might announced the start of the next trial. To call it one-sided would be an understatement. We could feel the chill from all the way over here. The level of control that Todoroki has over his ice could only be achieved through countless hours of practice. Most people would assume that his power comes from his quirk and nothing else. But I can see the blood, sweat and tears put into getting to where he is at. Didn't I tell you we would find competition here, Kachan? I whispered to my friend. For you maybe, was his response. He wasn't fooling me. He was honestly worried. It's a good thing I've helped with his inferiority complex or he might be having a mini meltdown. For those of you wondering how I help ed him out on his complex, it's quite simple. I kicked his ass, repeatedly. If I weren't there to challenge him, he would have been stuck in a rut with empty praise fueling his ego. I keep Kachan as humble as I can. Some would say I failed miserably, but they don't know how bad it could have been. Other than Todoroki, the other matches were pretty straightforward. I still made mental notes on everyone's quirks, potential uses and weaknesses. That's a wrap. Super work. You really stepped up to the plate, and we didn't have any major injuries. You should be proud. Excellent first day of training, all around. All Might declared in his over-the-top fashion that I still cannot get enough of. It's nice to hear some encouraging words after our homeroom class, Mr. Aizawa was kind of a buzzkill. Suyu summed up. I'm happy to bring such staggering positivity to my alma mater. That's all for now, folks. I should take care of my paperwork. Now watch how a pro exits. Like he's got somewhere to be. All Might encouraged while running faster than most cars. Okay you guys, that is a hero. I'll never be able to run that fast. Super awesome. I however knew what was really going on and wasn't as happy-go-lucky as everyone else. All Might could barely teach a class without losing his form. He may be able to keep harrowing for another year, but I'm not sure he's going to make it through a year of teaching if he insists on doing it in his buff form. Hey, Midoriya. Are you going to go to lockers with us or are you going to do your shapeshifting thing? Kirishima asked. I was still in my combat form. Got nothing better to do. I replied. I was kind of curious. Never had to use a locker room before, so this would be novel. Locker room. I didn't miss much, and I could do without the smell. So, Midoriya, what are the limits of your shapeshifting if it's not too personal? Asked our resident Raven. I was kind of surprised that he would be the one to ask. He seemed more the quiet type. Solid or liquid shapes only, so I can't pull off Endeavor's flaming hair. Nothing smaller than my total body mass or too much, though I can hollow myself out to somewhat compensate. While I can replicate the shape of something, I can't change the chemical makeup of my body like Yaoyorozu can. I listed off. So, you could imitate me? Tokiyami asked. Now I know why he spoke up. To answer him, I decided to give it a go. In under 10 seconds there stood two raven-headed teens with towels wrapped around their waists. Whoa, Kaminari surmised. Click click click. Having a beak feels weird. I said, in my voice after giving my new lips a test drive. I wouldn't know. Our feathered friend shrugged. So, is your junk the same size too? Kaminari asked with the subtlety of a wrecking ball. Didn't know a bird could blush. Tokiyami was proving it though. Yes, and I know your size too. Keep it civil and I won't spill the beans to the girls. I half threatened, not knowing how I would even do that without coming off like a creep. Okay, just wondering. He apologized. Can you mimic women just as well? The resident pervert Mineta asked. I was tempted not to answer, but now everyone in the locker room minus Kachan and Todoroki were looking at me with barely concealed curiosity. Plus I'm comfortable with my body and all its quirks. This is just going to bug everyone until I answer. Yes, I can mimic everything when impersonating a woman, everything. I stressed. But I don't like keeping it up for long periods of time and it's just not my thing. Body dysmorphism. The Raven asked. Yes. How Yaoyorozu can fight while wearing heels and no sports bra is a mystery I don't think I will ever figure out. I tried it once in junior high and having the equivalent of a pair of melons Lou Selly strapped to your chest plays havoc with your sense of balance, and forcing those puppies to stay still makes them look fake, ruining the camouflage. I ranted, still mimicking Tokiyami. It was the one weakness of my mimicry that still bugs me. I take pride in being able to imitate others perfectly. Almost perfectly. Keep talking like that, Deku, and people will think you're a pervert. My friend quipped, trying to get a shot in. Too bad I have more ammo than him. Then what does it say about you when I use Lady Kachan? I fired back, smirking to get used to the beak. Bakugo was almost as red as a tomato. That one is losing its effect. That I am the best no matter which gender I am. He shouted. I should have seen that coming. Lady Kachan? Iida asked. Bakugo tried to tease me about being able to effectively turn into a girl, so I turned into an older female version of him and claimed I was his older sister for a day despite the vertigo I dropped. Everyone laughed at that one and opt for more answers out of the living stick of dynamite. Once we made it back to homeroom, the rest of the school day was reserved for regular classes. Near the end of it, we had some free time to go over the results of our battle training. I didn't have much to go over, so I spent that time giving everyone what little tips for their quirks I could. Overall, not a bad day. The start of the next Weaver was a circus, and not even a fun one. A battalion of reporters were hanging out in front of UA, harassing students and faculty for anything on the newest teacher. I pity those who can't slip by them by impersonating a reporter. Didn't even have to change my face. Just age myself a bit and throw on the news agency accessories of my choice, and none of them noticed until I crossed the threshold. By then it was too late for them to catch me. Decent work on yesterday's combat training, you guys. I saw the video feeds and went over each of your team's results. Bakugo, you're talented. So, don't sulk like a child about your loss, okay? Quote. Yeah, whatever. And Midoriya, stay focused on the objective. Wasting time isn't logical. Fix that and you'll be a force to be reckoned with. Aizawa complimented backhandedly. Let's get down to business. Our first task will decide your future. You could feel the tension in the air. You all need to pick a class representative. The relief was also palpable. NK the shouting of pick me. Normally the class representative just gets saddled with extra work that nobody wants. But here in the hero course it has more significance. Agencies love it when you have tangible proof that you can lead a team while under pressure. Silence, everyone, please. Thank you, Iida. The class representative's duty is to lead others. That's not something just anyone can do. You must first have the trust of every student in the classroom. Therefore, the most logical way to fill this position is democratically. We will hold an election to choose our leader. He prattled on. It was obvious that he wants to take the position. Is this really the best idea? Asked Kaminari. We've only known each other a few days, how do we know who we can trust? Tsuyu supplied. Besides, everyone will just vote for themselves. Kirishima pointed out. Most people will. But that means whoever does receive multiple votes must truly be the most suitable person for the job. It's the best way, right, sir? Iida asked our lazy homeroom teacher. Do what you want, just decide before my nap's over. He answered before falling over in his sleeping bag. Thank you for your trust. Iida exclaimed, missing Aizawa's apathy. And if we don't like who we pick, we can just lynch them afterwards if they don't want to step down. I joked. I was met with silence. I've been around Bakugo since we were kids. I blame him for my morbid sense of humor. I defended. Surprisingly, most of the class nodded at that. Why do you always blame me for your problems, Deku? Denied said friend. Because. Most of the time you are the source of strife in my life, and if I ever start Robot Armageddon, I will make sure the survivors remember that your bad influence caused it. I teased. While he and I bickered, everyone else was going through with the voting. Once ours were added, Iida counted them out. Somehow, I got 3 votes and Momo got 2. Okay, you idiots, who voted for him? Kachan demanded. Did you honestly think anyone was going to vote for you? The walking tape dispenser asked. Which caused Bakugo to devolve into his usual denials and threats. Iida was also lamenting the results with his lack of any votes. Honestly, he is way too rigid. Alright, the class representative is Midoriya, and our deputy is Yaoyorozu. Aizawa declared with the 2 of us standing in front of the class. You guys just want to see if I will live in fear of getting lynched, don't you? I accused. Silence. Then I guess we shall see if you will get your wish. With that it was time for lunch. It's always so dead in the cafeteria with all the other departments sharing the same block for lunch. Currently I was sharing a table with Iida and Ochako, who just voiced my own thoughts. So, who do you think voted for me? I asked them. Both of them froze mid-sentence. Seriously, you both voted for me? I asked, slightly bewildered. Your courage and quick thinking under stress will make you a worthy leader. No. To mention the strength you demonstrated. Those are the reasons I voted for you at least. He answered. Didn't you wanna be representative really badly? I mean, you do look the part. 'Cause of the glasses? Ochako asked. Sometimes I wonder what goes on inside of that girl's head. Though I don't think anyone in the hero course can claim to be sane in any sense of the word. Wanting a job and being suited to it are quite different things. Observing the Iida family's hero agency has taught me that much. I thought I recognized that style of armor. You're Ingenium's younger brother, aren't you? I asked. Did you figure out that I was his younger brother? Iida questioned. I like to keep up to date on heroes both present and past, and the only Iida currently active as a hero is Ingenium. Given the me of his debut, he would have had to have been 12 or so when you were born. So, either he is a ladies' man or your brothers. I explained. I knew you were rich, Iida, exclaimed Ochako. Ignoring her, Iida continued. Insightful. Like how you figured out the true meaning of the entrance exam. A representative needs that. I didn't save her for rescue points, Iida. I may have had suspicions about the 0-pointer, but that was all. I saved our friend here because it was the right thing to do. If the school told us that such actions would have deducted points, I still would have done the exact same thing. I explained. Both of my new friends were silent, as if asking me to continue. For me, being a hero isn't about the money, the fame or legacy. It's about helping people with a smile on my face when they need it. Because everyone will face a crisis in their lives, and if no one is there to help them, then it may just be the last thing they ever face. I only hope that when I face my darkest hour and I will have friends willing to stand by me as we brave that darkness. I declared. All Might may be the #1 hero, but the rest of the top 10 put together save more people than him annually by a huge margin. I'm not as arrogant as my childhood friend to believe that I can defeat all evil by myself. There will come a time when we will all need the help of others to get the job done. Quirks are not able to change that intrinsic aspect of humanity. At least not yet, and a part of me hopes that that will never change. Before we could continue our discussion, an alarm went off. Warning: Level 3 security breach. All students please evacuate the building in an orderly fashion. Said a recording over the PA. Iida asked the guy sitting next to us what Level 3 meant. Turns out someone made it past the school's barrier. While this was going on, I was hacking into the security cameras in the school through the phone in my pocket. Better tell Nezu that having a wireless connection to the security feed is a vulnerability. By the time I got tapped in and found out it was just the media who got in, the whole cafeteria was in a panic trying to fit through a hallway. Someone could get hurt. This will not do. I dispersed my body into a cloud/sandstorm of particles. Ignoring the thought of my phone being damaged, I began moving between everyone to get to the narrowed exit door. This simultaneously had the effect of getting me to my destination and freezing those who saw and heard me pass by them. My particles reached the exit, and I began moving them to stretch up to the ledge above the door. Using the metal support beams in the wall to cling to with my magnetic field. As more of me reached my destination, I pulled myself back together in a sitting position. For a brief second, everyone could see the understructure of my body. This also helped in grabbing everyone's attention. Everyone calm down. It's just the media outside. There's nothing to worry about. We are UA students. Is this how we act when an alarm goes off? I demanded. Right on. The police sirens signaled the end of this debacle. Everyone calmed down and order was restored. The rest of the day blew by me, giving half-distracted answers to everyone. I was going through all the video footage the security cameras picked up and found holes in the recordings. They started at the gate, and by logic, deduction, I plotted the path that the person who destroyed the front gate took. I have no idea what they could have wanted in the faculty lounge or how they wiped the security footage, but I was going to inform the principal at the end of the school day. I hope it was just a crazy fan with mad skills, but I can't help but feel that whoever did this has much more sinister intentions. Today's TR. Aiming is something that all heroes need to be proficient in, Yet some like Kachan overlook it in favor of the villain takedowns. Rescue training. Doesn't matter how good you are at taking down bad guys if you cannot save people from environmental dangers. That's why All Might remains the #1 hero and Endeavor has never been able to take the position from him in his entire career despite closing significantly more cases. Removing people from danger is difficult when you deliberately cover yourself in flames. While All Might is someone whose very presence brings comfort, Endeavor can only achieve that while in the middle of a blizzard. Aizawa gave us the option to either use our gear or training uniforms. Everyone but me had to decide now because we were going to an off-campus facility. I decided to try out my leather jacket, jeans and red high tops costume option. Iida tried to get me to agree with his idea of organizing almost every aspect of how we would board the bus. Not seating arrangements only, but who would get on first to reach the back and sit. I had to politely tell him that the time spent informing and organizing every one of his plans would take longer than we just let everyone decide for themselves. My point was driven home even further when we found out that the bus had open seating. Iida, you really need to chill, Mina declared, to the agreement of everyone. If we are pointing out the obvious, then there's something I wanna say, about you actually. Asui said while looking at me. Oh, I asked. That move of yours, isn't it a lot like All Might's? She asked, while I was contemplating whether or not her quirk is Esper rather than Frog. Thankfully, I am good at improv. I am a bit of an All Might fan and have been trying to replicate his signature moves for the last 10 months. I'm still working out the kinks as you all saw. I answered without revealing the truth. A bit of an All Might fan? Kachan asked with clear sarcasm in his voice. I wouldn't be throwing stones in a glass house there, Kachan. Or should I call you Mr. Gonna be the next #1 hero? I countered before we both reveal the other has a borderline shine to the current #1 in our closets. You can call me Mr. Gonna kick your ass, was his intelligent and predictable reply. Bakugo's always angry, so he will never be that popular. Sue said, verbally bitch slapping him. I am in awe of the sheer balls on this frog, and guys do not say that often when referring to someone of the opposite gender. Before Bakugo could really get going with his threats, Kaminari took a few shots. You know, we basically just met you. So, it's kinda telling that we all know your personality is flaming crap mixed with garbage. I don't have any ice for that burn, maybe Todoroki will make some. You're gonna regret the day you applied to this school, you loser, was Kachan's response. After that it devolved into a free-for-all on my friend. Nobody dared to tease him in middle school. It's good to see people other than me who aren't scared of him. Hey, we're here, stop messing around. Aizawa snapped tiredly. Everyone automatically replied, yes sir. Except for Kachan, who belligerently said, whatever. I have never been able to understand my friend's obsessive need to stand out from everyone else. I get that it's his way of trying to be the #0 hero, but how does being grating to everyone else help? While I'm thinking about the paradox that is my best friend, everyone has gotten off the bus and Ochako is gushing over the Space Hero 13. The USJ was one of UA's training facilities that I had obtained the blueprints for during my many jaunts through the school's computer system. Didn't take away from the enormity of the facility when I laid my own eyes on it. The Space Hero 13 came out to greet us before we entered the USJ. They are a good example of a rescue hero and how the profession isn't all about fighting villains. A hurricane can kill more people and do more damage in a day than most organized crime syndicates accomplish in their entire history. Rescue heroes are the most altruistic and underappreciated group within the heroics industry. Natural disasters are more often than not overlooked in favor of the latest villain who managed to get people's attention with his or hers manifesto and/or disturbing acts of violence. Even before Quirks, humanity has had a fascination with serial killers. I think the fascination stems from the fact that many serial killers are the result of too many bad things happening to someone at once, and a fear that if you are put into the same situation with the same set of circumstances leading up to it, you may do the exact same thing. 13 has just finished lecturing on how quirks used recklessly can do more harm in a rescue attempt than good. Something I'm sure my friend who could use this lesson the most has probably ignored. Right, now that that's over. Before Aizawa could finish, an electrical surge went through the lights overhead, shorting them out. The others couldn't feel it, but the connection I had through my phone to the internet was severed. That's how I knew this wasn't an ordinary blackout. Stay together and don't move. 13 Protect the students, Aizawa shouted, an edge of urgency I had never heard from him before. Looking over the plaza, I found out the reason. A black mist had spread out like a wall in front of the central fountain. Villains of all shapes and sizes were coming out of said mist. If I had a heart, it would be hammering right now. Focus, Izuku. Analyze everything. I told myself to push past the initial fear, turning my gaze to the flood of criminals. The only villains that stick out were the first one and last two to appear. Hanzi must have an emitter-type quirk around his hands, the extra nerves and internal mutations are a giveaway. The mist guy doesn't have a solid body besides a metal neck brace hidden from the normal vision spectrum. Now what about the tall guy with an exposed brain? I thought before focusing on him. I can't physically throw up, but I would be right now if I could. The internal scar, ring from medical procedures were overlapping. Muscle attachments and density were comparable to All Might. These weren't the things that made every particle of my body crawl. His brain activity was only slightly above a coma patient's. Nobody would consent to this. To be altered so much that your very sense of self is destroyed and replaced by the equivalent of a biological wind-up toy. Mr. Aizawa, stay away from Bird Brain. He's in the same weight class as All Might without activating a quirk. I warned. The insomniac of a teacher gave a slight nod of his head before jumping into the fray. Quite literally. I don't think I saw his feet touch the stairs at all. My thoughts on Aizawa's secret float quirk were overcome by awe at his skill with his capture weapon and hand-to-hand combat. It was like watching a weed whacker go through dandelions. An accurate assessment considering the circular movements of his capture weapon. Those few moments of analysis left me at the back of the group. As 13 lead my classmates to the exit. Whose idea was it to design such a distance between the doors and stairs? We were paying for that architectural flaw now. Aizawa must have blinked if the BL.A.C. mist villain was able to slip away and bar us from leaving. There is no escape for you. It's a pleasure to meet you. We are the League of Villains. I know it's impolite, but we decided to invite ourselves into this have of justice to say hello. And besides, isn't this a fitting place for All Might, the symbol of peace, to take his last breath? I believe he was supposed to be here today, and yet I see no sign of him. There must have been some sort of change in plans we could not have foreseen. Ah well, in the end, I suppose it doesn't matter. The villainous mist monologued. He spread his foggy arms out. I still have a role to play. The black mist threatened. Before he could go through with that threat, Kachan and Kirishima tried to hit him with explosions and fists. A bad move in my opinion. All they probably did is obscure our vision and get in 13's way. You live up to your school's reputation. But you should be more careful, children. Otherwise, someone might get hurt. I hate it when I'm right. I'll scatter you across this facility to meet my comrades and your deaths. The villain declared, spreading himself across the whole area. Before I could move out of the way, my classmates and I were enveloped in black mist. While he spelled out his intentions and I could probably escape the mass warping like I saw Shoji do so. It was easy math to figure out which students would be in more danger. I decided to help those who would need it more and let myself get swept away. Once the black fog in my vision cleared, I immediately regretted my decision and tried to gather as much air inside myself as I could. I don't need to breathe, but not having regular-sized lungs and weighing at least 3 times more than a normal person makes swimming a real challenge. I can make little air pockets throughout my mass to increase buoyancy, but this has its own problems. I feel like a balloon with the air pockets I need to make room for, and I cannot shift the mass surround. Ding the captured air without losing it and sinking like a brick. An exercise in mental restraint when I am used to shifting mass instinctively to maintain balance. In short, I am a bloated, sluggish, sitting duck. Stuck in the middle of the shipwreck zone waiting for the villains to come and have their wicked way with me. Oh, my what big teeth the first one has. Before I and the half-fish villain could figure out if my sushi making skills were better than his balloon popping ones, Sue nailed him in the face with both of her feet, snagged me with her tongue and promptly fucked off, leaving the deep sea reject in the dust. I was a little surprised that she was able to lift me onto the boat, but then again, Most animal quirks increase the bearer's strength when not confined to one body part like Tokiyami's head. Her rough treatment of Mineta was not a surprise, however, shameless pervert. This is turning out to be a terrible day of class, Sue declared once she got on the boat. And I doubt it's going to get better. That villain spelled out their plan. Kill All Might, and they knew our schedule. They probably are the ones who let the media in at lunch yesterday and snuck in while the teachers were distracted. I answered. Hey, hold on a second. It's not like these guys can really kill All Might. Once he shows up, he'll pound those villains until there's nothing left. Mineta interrupted. Think about it though. If the villains spent so much time planning this attack, then they probably figured out a way to kill him. And didn't you hear what that smoke guy said? Maybe we should worry more about not getting tortured to death. Otherwise, we might not survive long enough to see All Might again. And even if he does show up, who knows if he will make out in one piece. Sue explained, not noticing or caring how each word sent Mineta further and further into a panic attack. No, the pros are gonna save us, right? Tell Frog Boobs to shut up. I'm honestly tempted to toss the poo. RPLE gum drop to the villains, and Sue probably feels the same way if her indignant ribbit was any indication. Speaking of villains, they seemed to have decided to make an appearance and surround the boat. But that was it. Aside from the typical death threats that make B-movie villains cringe, they didn't come closer. A strategy was forming in my mind. Sue, Mineta, come here, I think I have a plan. I declared. The human grape. Frog and I huddled in closer to keep the unwanted fish from hearing us. So, what's your plan, Midoriya? Sue asked. Okay, correct me if I'm wrong, but your quirks are frog and pop off, right? Sue can jump real far and Mineta can detach the balls on his head and stick them to anything except himself, right? I asked. The silent stares were unwarranted. How did you figure that out? Sue asked, already assuming it was something nefarious, considering we never talked about our quirks yet. Too bad she's somewhat right. UA's cybersecurity is a joke. I regularly hack in and browse through student files to read up on quirks. I shamelessly admitted. I was asked by the principal to test it after all. Says the walking computer. Did you bribe the servers with upgrades or threaten them with malware? Sue joked. Do you want to hear the plan, Asui? I asked in a more clipped tone, using her family name rather than Sue. Being compared to everyday computers has always been a sore spot for me. Strange thing is, I'm not too sure why I get upset. Is it the inherent questioning of my humanity, or is it because I see myself as better than those outdated hunks of junk? Either way, I outlined the plan. I would use a smash attack to disrupt the water surface while Sue and Mineta jump away to gain height and distance, while our miniature pervert throws as many of his sticky balls out as he can to trap the villains when they are sucked in by the water displacement. Our plan was a success. A 100% success. This time I tried flicking with just my fingers and the results were better than I expected. It will take less than a minute for the particles making up my fingers to come back, and while the attack was less powerful than when my whole arm is used, I can fire it multiple times before having to wait for my hands to fix themselves. The League of Villains must be recruiting from a 1 to 800 henchmen line because these guys were pushovers. While we were making our way to the shore in the shallows, my fingers finished reconstructing themselves and my mind kept wandering to the fight in the central plaza. Aizawa, despite his experience, cannot keep up the of pace required to fight multiple foes for an extended duration. Eventually he is going to overexert himself, and either the man-child or the monstrosity will pick him off. The answer to this problem is obvious. But he told us to avoid confrontation and our priority is to get away or get help. For Mineta and Sue it's the most logical choice, but is it the best use of myself? I am without a doubt the most durable person here. Even Kirishima would fall short. These villains don't know how my quirk works and are unlikely to have some way of damaging me permanently. I guess the real question is, can I live with myself if there was something I could do and turned my back to follow my teacher's instructions? I already know the answer and I'm a terrible student. Mineta, Sue, if you skirt around the edge of the plaza, you should be able to get to the entrance without running into villains. I declared. What about you, Midoriya? Sue asked with an edge I didn't think she had. It's not a case of if but when Aizawa is going to run out of steam and be left to the not-so-tender mercy of these villains. I can pretend to be another grunt and assist if needed without much risk to my person. You guys do not have that luxury, and it would ruin the deception if you were standing next to me and I wasn't trying to hurt you. I explained as quickly as I could. For a moment no one said anything. Sue was processing my crazy plan, and I would rather not guess what Mineta was thinking about. Fine, but don't do anything stupid. The level-headed frog answered. Your class would be boring without you. The pervert tacked on. When have I ever done anything stupid? I asked with a grin. With that we parted ways. I made my way to the edge of the shore closet to Aizawa while they took the long way round. Our teacher was still going. I had to question when he has the time to work on his cardio when he's always dead on his feet. The exchange between him and the guy with the obsession with severe D hands lasted only a few seconds, but I was still able to follow everything. Aizawa used his scarf to both blind and drag him closer for an elbow strike. Normally this would increase the power and knock the wind out of someone. Hanzi however managed to catch the elbow with his hand. When Aizawa's hair dropped, things took a turn for the worse. Hanzi's quirk requires 5-finger contact to activate. When it did, the fabric and then skin of Eraserhead's elbow began to crack and fall apart. Before any more damage could be inflicted, Aizawa slugged him and backed away. His right arm however was hanging limp. Didn't stop him from taking out more bad guys single-handedly. He was panting however while Hanzi was monologuing about how impressive Eraserhead is. This was a distraction to let the monstrosity get behind him. It was at this point that I couldn't stand back any longer. Disguises be damned. 2% and my own speed boost technique carried me fast enough to get in front of my teacher. Duck, was all I had time to shout before the bioweapon cocked its left arm. Aizawa didn't waste time and did as he was told. If he had been a half-second slower, his head would have been caught between two fists and crushed. As it was, the shockwave rattled me and sent him tumbling, thankfully away from the disintegration villain. Birdbrain didn't continue his assault. Apparently introducing a new variable caused him to wait for further instruction. I took the opportunity to get some distance. I saw how his flesh rippled from the impact. Some sort of shock absorption quirk, I think. It probably can handle All Might given their goal, so I have no chance of overpowering it with my limited control of One for All. Stalling was my best bet and fighting a last resort. Now this is interesting. I didn't think a mere student could match the anti-symbol of peace in strength, or is it durability? Hanzi queried. A bit of both if I'm being honest. This guy however is a puzzle I can't quite figure out. I can see he's undergone some bioengineering that's left his brain back in the Stone Age. Care to satisfy a mere student's curiosity? I taunted. If I can keep the guy talking, he might reveal something and give myself and Eraserhead some breathing room. Now why would I do that? Hanzi asked, amused by my brashness. Because you like games, RPGs, if your word choice while monologuing is any indication. Would it not be more sporting to give me a chance while you wait for All Might to show up? I answered, hoping he would take the bait. Not many people pick up on my hobby like you have. Are you by chance a fellow gamer? He asked, ignoring my original question. Who in this day and age hasn't dabbled? I admit I tend to lean more towards FPS games, but I have a soft spot for Metroidvanias. I answered honestly, trying to build some sort of rapport with the maniac. Makes my synthetic skin crawl. That explains it. Explains what? I asked, knowing I wasn't going to like the answer. Why, you thought you could trick me like some dumb shotgun ape? You're fishing for a weakness you can exploit with your quirk, whatever it may be, but I am the dungeon master, and I am going to kill every player and NPC in this place until All Might shows up. He declared in true homicidal maniac fashion. DMs don't fight the boss, buddy. I corrected, knowing this conversation was about to end badly anyways. All Might isn't the boss, Nomu is. The now named Nomu perked up when his name was spoken. Kill him, was all the warning I got. Combat it is then. Nomu's speed was impressive. Out anyone else could keep him in sight, much less react to him. I was able to do both, albeit barely. While fast, his moves are telegraphed, and he pauses when the initial goal isn't reached due to his limited cognitive function. No finesse or skill, but when you have shock absorption theoretically capable of withstanding All Might, you shouldn't need it, but this guy's body is still humanoid and subject to the same weak points. The joints. The average knee only needs 5 pounds of force applied at the right angle and over a small surface area to break. My legs can generate significantly more force and the side of the knee has virtually nothing between the skin and bone. Which is why when I dodged to his right and side kicked it there was an audible crack despite his quirk. Before he could fall, I maneuvered myself behind him and delivered a devastating roundhouse to the side of his other knee. This had the same effect of the first kick. With 2 broken knees Nomu had no choice but to topple forward. I jumped onto his back and grabbed one of his giant wrists, wrenching it backwards before he could try and stop me and began to pull while placing my feet on his shoulder. Shock absorbed. Ion only works with sudden impacts, not continuous force. Most people would need to jerk the arm to dislocate it, running into the same problem punches would have. I, however, with my shifting metal body, can keep applying more force like a floor jack until his shoulder dislocates. The sickening pop proved my theory. In the span of 10 seconds, I destroyed Nomu's knees and dislocated one of his arms. With only one functional arm left he should only be able to crawl. I looked to see what the leader of this ragtag group's reaction was to me taking out his trump card in less than a minute. His shoulders were shaking, and the laughter was bordering on hysterical. Amusement was not what I had expected. Kids today are so cool. You took Nomu apart in under a minute and you weren't even trying. That's impressive, truly. So much potential. Too bad you won't live to see another day. Before I could even contemplate his words, my vision blurred from how fast my head hit the concrete. I managed to see a glimpse of my attacker through the big dark fingers holding my face. How did Nomu grab me with his dislocated arm so quickly? My priorities took a shift when he started slamming my head into the ground repeatedly. The damage was minimal and repairing almost as fast as he was slamming me, but it's the principle of the matter. Nobody ragdolls me and gets away with it. My right arm shifted into a 3-foot-long blade that was promptly shoved through Nomu's wrist with a bloody squelch. A quarter turn counterclockwise cut more tendons, loosening his grip, adding to my disgust. The yank back towards the way the blade went in almost finished the gruesome work of severing the appendage, grabbing my face. Me jerking my head back tore the rest of the ligaments holding the limb. The infernal D slid off and fell with a wet plop onto the floor once it had nothing attached to it, giving me a clear view of my attacker. Nomu didn't show any signs of pain despite the clearly severed hand. It was eerie, almost inhuman how he just stood there on fixed knees like it was nothing. I guess that's why All Might was giving me those looks when I blew my own arm off trying to use one for all. Nomu's stump stopped bleeding and began to squirm. In a matter of seconds, a new skinless hand grew to replace the old one, followed shortly after by said missing skin. As if this day couldn't get any worse. 2 quirks, huh? I wonder how you guys manage that. Is that why he's practically brain dead? Too much strain on his mind having more quirks than he can handle? I asked, trying to get him talking. Why? Well, I take a moment to come up with a plan. Eraserhead is busy trying to keep the grunts off of himself with one hand and no rest. While I may be dealing with a regenerating juggernaut, I haven't taken any significant damage. Aizawa, however, is hanging on by his teeth at this point. Best thing I can do for now is keep the heavy hitters away from him as long as possible. A job I am well suited to. Clever little hero, yes. There are just some things that even high-speed regeneration can't fix. But it's not like he needs to think to do his job. The nutcase answered flippantly. I don't know, he seems to be doing a pretty piss-poor job of killing me, and the guy in charge of thinking for him isn't much better. I antagonized like my best friend would have. Cute. But I must admit you fascinate me. Even if you had a durability quirk you wouldn't have been able to shrug off those blows to the head like that and change your arm into a blade. Perhaps a full body mutation with optional transformations. I'd very much like to crack you open and see what makes you tick. Nomu. Before Hanzi could finish giving Nomu his orders, the warper did his thing and appeared right next to the blue-haired villain. Tamura Shigaraki, the fog helpfully provided. Kurogiri, did you manage to kill 13? Shigaraki asked like a manager would his employees. The rescue hero is out of commission, but there were students I was unable to disperse and one of them got outside of the facility. Kurogiri admitted. Huh, Kurogiri, you fool, if you weren't our warp gate, I'd tear apart every last atom in your body. Shigaraki ground out while barely holding back his anger and scratching his neck with both hands. There's no way we can win if dozens of pros show up to stop us. It's game over. Back to the title screen. And I was looking forward to finishing this today. Damn it, he thought out loud once his little tantrum was under control. But before we go home, we need to kill this brat. He walked off taking a beating from Nomu and cut off one of his hands. Yet I still don't know what his quirk is. And here I thought he was going to just leave. Oh, durability and transformation abilities. A rare combination. Master will want to study this one. Kurogiri said. This one is not the latest smartphone, thank you very much, and I doubt you will be able to take me anywhere without losing a limb. Oh, I hope you can grow them back like your big dumb friend, or else this is going to be a short fight. I blustered, hoping they don't call my bluff. Truth is, with the warper now in play, I am at a huge disadvantage. Not if I take yours first. You don't need your arms and legs. Nomu grabbed him. Several things happened in the seconds after Tamura finished telling Nomu what to do. I was pinned down by the monstrosity. His previous sluggish movements nowhere to be seen. Like he was programmed to grab people over fighting them. Shigaraki was so close that I was afraid that he might actually get a chance to use his quirk on me. Even if I were to disperse myself, I don't know if that would prevent him from getting the 5 points of contact needed to activate it. Before the terror could set in, Salvation came in and blew the doors off their hinges with a big boom to go with it. His stride was oozing confidence and reassurance. Have no fear, students. I am here, All Might declared. His smile was not present. He must be really pissed. Shigaraki was mumbling something about his game getting a continue, but I only had one thought on my mind at the moment. What took you so long, old man? If you asked 100 people what makes All Might dangerous in a fight, the majority would say his powerful punches, but that's not true. It's his speed that makes him a terrifying opponent. Strength quirks tend to have trouble landing a hit on those faster than them. With All Might you don't even know you've been hit until you're sent flying. Something the remaining cannon fodder was getting a first-hand demonstration in. I was barely able to keep him in my line of sight. Afterwards I was dragged out from Nomu's grasp none too gently. A small complaint given its strength and my inherent durability. Once my vision was able to come back into focus, I found myself behind my predecessor, sitting next to my homeroom teacher, who was passed out from fighting non-stop for almost an hour with no break and a recently mangled arm. How hard did he have to work to gain that type of endurance while I exceeded by simply existing? Internal debate later. Inform All Might of the situation. All Might, Birdbrain has 2 quirks. Shock absorption and regeneration. Punching won't work and I cut his hand off, but he just grew it back in seconds. Breaking his joints only slows him down. Young Midoriya. All Might, said while gesturing to me behind his back with an open hand. Then he faced me while peace signing in front of his face like a magic girl. I almost laughed at how ridiculous it was. I got this, he declared, and I could see what he was doing. Every gesture and movement he makes is to reassure those around him. Nobody could be that goofy naturally. He almost got me to laugh while in the middle of a death battle with his persona. Take Aizawa to the entrance while I deal with this, he ordered, breaking my train of thought. I didn't immediately do as he asked. Getting Eraserhead away from Dan Gier was a priority, but these guys planned to take on All Might while he had 2 heroes to assist him. The odds of them succeeding only go up if he faces them alone. I don't like it, but I guess I need to have faith in his ability to hold out until I get back. That last thought gave me pause. Since when did I start doubting that All Might could win this fight on his own? No more delays, I scooped up Aizawa in a fireman's carry. Making sure to hold his arm above the damaged elbow, and booked it to the entrance using 2% of one for all to push my speed as far as I could without phase shift. Ting, as I now call my speed boost technique. The run to the front entrance took less than a minute. I could hear my classmates talking, but it was just white noise to me. Watching the fight took all of my focus. Despite my warnings, All Might still tried to punch Nomu. Granted, he didn't commit to the blows, but I still felt a twinge of annoyance. Alas, it didn't take him long to change tactics and deliver the mother of all suplexes. It was like a bomb went off. However, Nomu wasn't buried in concrete. Kurogiri somehow managed to open a portal where the monstrosity would have hit the ground. The other end of the portal was underneath All Might, giving Nomu the chance to grab him where his old injury was. Blood started to seep through All Might's shirt. Before he could begin to struggle, I was running at full speed back into the fray. Without the extra weight I was back at the plaza in half the time it took me to get to the front entrance. Kurogiri moved his portals away from each while still open. Doesn't matter, my plan wouldn't change. At 10 feet from All Might I lunged to try and get to Nomu quicker. Kurogiri however was faster and managed to get in between me and All Might. I couldn't see it, but I knew he was opening a portal to send me who knows where, and he chose the one moment I can't stop my own momentum. Or so he thought. Flowing like a river around a rock I avoided the portal. Moved past All Might and reformed on Nomu's upper back. I could hear the two villains in charge's exclamations, but that wasn't important right now. Wasting no time, I changed my right arm into a blade and plunged it through the back of Nomu's neck, severing his spinal cord with a wet squelch. Immediately Nomu's grip slackened, and All Might broke free. Once my favorite hero was out of harm's way, I tried to remove my blade from the monstrosity's neck but was met with firm resistance. Nomu had a firm grip on the part of my blade that was sticking out the front of his neck. How was he able to move with a severed spine? My eyes looked at where the blade went in and switched between several vision spectrums to figure out what was going on. I got my answer. Nomu's nerves grew around my blade and reattached themselves. I didn't even know that was possible. I could have gotten out of this mess by phasing, but the surprise made me stumble for a few seconds. Seconds that allowed the bioweapon and Kurogiri to regroup. Nomu dragged my arm and lower torso through, leaving just my upper body out and positioning Nomu out of the way of their coup de grace. I had no time to phase out of the closing portal. It was like a guillotine coming down from all sides, it was so quick. Now I can't feel my legs or right arm. Midoriya. I heard All Might scream while Shigaraki was laughing like a serial killer. Must be because of the fake blood all around me. I still have no idea why that's the default for when I am injured while in human form. Before I could start pulling myself back together, I heard a familiar bang go off next to Kurogiri, who hasn't moved from where he tried to stop me. With a mighty roar, Bakugo pinned Kurogiri on the ground by his neck brace. Always so dramatic. You. I found your body that time, ya smoky bastard. He added. The next sound to reach my ears was the tinkling of Todoroki's ice inkazing Nomu up to his neck, and Kirishima tried to get the drop on Shigaraki, but he managed to dodge. Perfect timing, you guys. I was worried someone was going to get hurt. I shouted, needing to make sure they see I am fine despite being bisected and dismembered. My class, mates and teacher all turned to look at me, smiling and waving with my remaining arm. I wish I had a camera to capture the look on all their faces. The fuck happened to you, Deku? My best friend asked with a raised eyebrow. He has managed to blow off one of my arms in our spars in middle school, so he knows I am okay, but is probably wondering what was able to cut me in half, considering the effort it took to blast my arm off. I am not so strong as to be able to stop space-time from mending a tear in reality, Kachan. I replied, trying to put Kirishima and Todoroki's minds at ease with my humor. You could have just said Smokey did it. My friend snarked back. Sharp is a tack that one until he has to read the room, then he may as well be as dumb as brick. Okay, I'm just going to say it. Midoriya, are you alright? Kirishima asked, having enough of ignoring my superficial injuries. Ya, just give me a moment to pull myself together. I replied. Next, I started turning myself around with my one arm so I could face Shigaraki and my arm and lower half that were just a few feet away. My simulated injury making all sorts of squishy sounds that I hoped would unnerve him. No such luck if the lack of movement was anything to go by. You are an asshole. I swore at the man-child while pointing my finger at him. Kachan started wheezing from trying to hold in his laugh. I almost never swear, so I will give him that one. Shigaraki flinched at my declaration. That was what I was waiting for. When I was last dismembered, I found out that the separated pieces retain their form rather than falling apart into piles of metal. The smaller the piece, the further I can recall it from. Something I learned from destroying my arm using One for All. Right now, I extended my magnetic field outwards to reconnect my control of my missing parts. Suddenly I could feel my legs as they jerked around like something out of a horror movie. Once the connection was re-established, all three parts of me turned into a flowing mass that coalesced into a rising vortex. Within seconds I looked exactly how I did before this whole mess started. There we go, good as new. I declared while facing my classmates with my hands on my hips. If goofy poses work for All Might, I figured I may as well give it a try despite how unnatural it felt. Kids today really are amazing. They make the League of Villains look like amateurs. Especially when they capture my two strongest men. Can't have that, Shigaraki monologued. Nomu. With that one word the monstrosity started to move, despite the ice encasing him. It was not without repercussion though. All 4 of his limbs broke off, ice shattering with them. Then came the regeneration. It was everyone else's first time seeing it in action, but watching muscle and skin reg. Row rapidly still makes something in me churn with discomfort. Nomu has been modified to take you on, even at 100% of your power. He's basically a highly efficient punching bag that hits back. Shigaraki explained. First, we need to free our method of escape. Get him, Nomu. The towering beast moved so suddenly I almost didn't react in time. When a normal person prepares to lunge our sprint, you can see the muscles tensing, the slight lean back to push off. Nomu didn't do any of that. His movements before falling into a sprint were unnatural. Those seconds of a second that it took to figure out that he was going for Kachan meant that I didn't have time to move him out of the way. All Might was moving faster though and would probably be able to remove Kachan from danger, but at these speeds I couldn't process that information fast enough. All I could think about is saving Kachan. I once again dispersed my body, but rather than return to a humanoid shape I enveloped my best friend. Forming makeshift armor over his entire person, extra mass was used to form lightweight plates all along his back and spine, floating an inch off the surface to act as shock absorbers. Then came the impact. All Might managed to push us out of the direct path of Nomu's punch, but only barely. The shockwave from that punch hitting All Might's guard and us being only a foot away from it, and we were sent flying a good 100 feet away. The shock pads I made were put to the test when we finally made contact with the ground again. Every plate was violently pushed back into contact with us. But they did their job and dispersed the majority of the force from hitting the ground. I took the rest, and from what I could tell, Kachan wouldn't even have a bruise. We landed next to our classmates with our backs to the entrance. Wow, you guys dodged it and cool trick, Midoriya. Kirishima exclaimed when the dust settled, and he could see us. Shut up, no we didn't, and get off me you damn nerd, I can't see ya. Thing, Kachan replied, showing he was alright if he could still curse. Still, I slipped off of him like water and reformed next to him. Then how did you get over here? Kirishima asked. The sound of falling concrete drew our attention and prompted Todoroki to say what we were all thinking. Isn't it obvious? All Might was standing in the remains of a cement barrier with his arms in a cross guard. Panting heavily. These are kids and you didn't hold back. All Might accused. I didn't have much choice. He was threatening my companion. Besides, these kids are no angels. The not-so-plain-looking one. He cut off Nomu's arm and tried to kill him. What kind of hero does something like that? You think you can get away with being as violent as you want if you say it's for the sake of others? Well, you know what, All Might? That pisses me off. Why do people get to decide that some violent acts are heroic, and others are villainous? Casting judgment as to what's good and what's evil. You think you're the symbol of peace. You're just another government-sponsored instrument of violence. And violence always breeds more violence. I'll make sure the world understands that once you're dead. Shigaraki calmly ranted. I couldn't help the snort that left me. Everyone's eyes on me however sobered my outburst, and I took the invitation to speak. Don't talk like a pack. I fist when you are clearly a textbook sociopath who gets off on death and destruction. It doesn't suit you. Especially after you tried to cut me in half. I viciously dug at him, and I could just barely make out the narrowing of his eyes. Showing I hit the nail on the head. We've got them outnumbered, Todoroki declared. And Kachan found Misty's weakness. I added while raising my hands, ready to fight. These dudes may act really tough, but we can take him down now with All Might's help. Let's do this, Kirishima said while hardening his arms into makeshift shanks. Don't attack. Get out of here. All Might cut in while putting himself between us and the three villains. A retort about how he would have been in trouble without our help was on the tip of my tongue, but something stopped me. Maybe it was his posture or his expression, but I understood the message wordlessly conveyed. All Might needs to be the one to handle this. Not just for pride but for his position as the symbol of peace and all that it and he represent. If he lets us help deal the finishing blow, the protection he stands for is shattered and gone. It pains me but I have to let this play out. Fine, we will sit back and watch a pro at work. I declared with a light-hearted tone, raising my hands up to my sides to keep everyone else from interfering. I could hear Shigaraki whispering some plan to Kurogiri but couldn't make it out. His intentions however became very clear when he said, "Let's clear this level and go home," and ran directly towards us while trying to go around All Might. Heads up, we're fightin' after all. But before Shigaraki could make it halfway, everyone felt it. A change in the air, like gravity pressing down just the tiniest bit more on you. Then All Might moved. Shigaraki was below and back from Nomu intercepting All Might's punch. Not that we were faring any better. My classmates and I were blown back even further. Weren't you listening? One of his powers is shock absorption. Shigaraki asked smugly. Yeah, what about it? All Might shot back. And that was the start of a slugfest so fast I started to lose track of some of the punches. The continuous shockwaves kept everyone away with gale force winds. Whoa, they're so fast, Kirishima exclaimed while trying to keep his footing. He said your quirk was only shock absorption, not nullification. That means there's a limit to what you can take, right? All Might asked rhetorically while pressing his attack. Nomu managed to get another punch into All Might's old injury but that only seemed to piss him off. So, you were made to fight me, big guy. If you can really withstand me firing at 100% of my power, then I will have to go beyond that and force you to surrender. All Might's hits increased in number and intensity, slowly overwhelming Nomu. Unbelievable. He's giving it his all even though he's injured. Those aren't just random punches, either. They're targeted, and every single one of them, is more than 100% of his power. A real hero will always find a way for justice to be served. He yelled when Nomu was sent tumbling. Now he's grappling with Nomu. It was happening so fast that I couldn't tell how All Might managed to get him up in the air for such an earth-shattering throw. Literally, the ground shattered from the impact. Nomu even bounced off the decimated concrete. In that moment of weightlessness, All Might landed with the weight of a righteous titan. Now for a lesson. You may have heard these words before, but I will teach you what they really mean. He cocked his fist back, the air steaming from his hand. Go beyond. Plus, ultra. All Might roared while burying his fist into Nomu, his body bulging obscenely from trying to absorb all that kinetic energy. Then his quirk gave out. The ground cracked and exploded again. Nomu was launched through the roof of the USJ, and even created holes in the clouds on his trip through the atmosphere. That was like the finishing move in a video game. He beat the shock absorption right out of him. I've never seen that kind of brute strength, Kirishima exclaimed. Imagine having power like that. He must have been punching that monster so fast. He couldn't regenerate. Kachan added, stirring thoughts of my own. That was the remnants of One for All's power. How powerful is the entire quirk? How much strength lies within me, waiting to be released? Will I ever be able to use that much without destroying my arm on the first hit? Before I could spiral into more depreciating thoughts, I turned my gaze away. Owned the giant hole in the roof to All Might. Others couldn't, but I could see through the dust and through him. All the signs of exhaustion laid bare to me. He really is tapped out. If the villains wanted to, they could kill him right now without breaking a sweat. Unless, before I could talk myself out of it, I silently made my way into the dust cloud while everyone, including the villains, were still gaping at where Nomu went. I pulled All Might further in, his lack of resistance telling me just how utterly spent he was. Though he managed to turn around and see that it was me who pulled him away. At least it was me until I changed to look like him, battle damage and all. Let me do the bluffing, you are shaking too much to be convincing. I whispered. I could see it in his eyes, the anger and frustration. Not directed at me but at himself, because he knows he can't stop me despite how much he wants to. Without resistance he backed away, giving me permission. I walked out of the dust standing tall. Hopefully I can pull this off. You've been bested, villains. Surrender, we all want to get this over with quickly. I boasted. No, he beat me. He's not any weaker at all. And look what he did to my Nomu. He cheated. Shigaraki whisper raged. If I can just keep him flat-footed until the other teachers arrive, we will be golden. Oh, Come on, what's going on here? He's just as strong as he's always been. Damn it. Don't tell me I was lied to. This guy's emotions are all over the place. Perhaps I can push him in the right direction. What's wrong? Not attacking me. Didn't you say you were going to clear this level earlier? Well, come and get me, if you dare. I antagonized while forming my face into my best guess of what All Might's glare would look like. It seemed to work. Shigaraki started gasping and backing away. Man, this is intense. I heard Kachan whisper despite the distance. As I expected. There's no reason for us to fight now, he'll handle this. Todoroki declared. Wait, where's Midoriya? Kirishima asked. What? Kachan asked while whipping his head around until it fell on me. I could see the gears turning and his eyes widening when the light bulb went off. Ah hell. Bakugo. What's going on? Kirishima asked. That's not All Might. Kachan answered. Damn it. What do you mean? Todoroki asked with a raised eyebrow. That's not All Might, it's Deku pretending to be him. He gritted out through clenched teeth to keep the villains from hearing. Why would he do that? Kirishima whispered, understanding the danger of loud words. Obviously punchy. Ing a villain into the clouds took more effort than we thought, and Deku is playing chicken to buy time. Kachan answered quickly. He's not wrong. Puffed up like this, I don't think I could move properly in a fight. What? Are you scared? I pressed, hoping to push them into surrendering or running away. If only Nomu was here, he'd rush you right now. Pound you into the ground without giving it a second thought. Shigaraki raved while scratching his neck aggressively. Tamura Shigaraki. Please, do not fret. Look at him. He has definitely weakened. Nomu's attacks were successful. He's on his own. The children appear to be frozen in fear. And look, our underlings are recovering. We likely still have a few minutes before their reinforcements arrive. If you and I work together, we can do this. We haven't missed our chance to kill All Might. Kurogiri explained, soothingly, though I wonder why he thought I was weakened. Perhaps the injuries were too realistic. Yeah, you're right. This is it. We have no choice. We have to do it now. I mean, the big end boss is right here. Shigaraki said while calming down. That's not good. Consider this revenge for what you did to Nomu. He yelled, led while breaking into a sprint that would make ravenous dogs proud. Shit, what can I do? I could use the finger flick again, but that might not be enough power and would give away that I can't punch them away like All Might. A punch is out of the question. That will damage my whole arm and let the villains know that I'm not All Might. Damn it. Boom. What? I thought before my grin became genuine. Kachan, you maniac. Jumping in and delivering the mother of all explosions to their faces, and they call me reckless. Todoroki followed up with a barrage of ice, to try and capture the disoriented villains. Thought they were only pushed back, the help was appreciated. Kirishima pulled up the rear. Before any witty remarks could be exchanged, gunshots rang out. 4 in rapid succession. 2 hit Shigaraki's hands, while 2 more went somewhere out in the distance. The teachers were too far away to hear except for Present Mike when he used his quirk to subdue the cannon fodder by the fountain. Despite the noise, all I could feel was the kind of relief that uncoils muscles you didn't even know you had. Sometimes literally in my case. Ah, man, the pros are here. It's game over. For real. Let's go home and try this when we can. And that's how far the man-child got before 2 more shots hit his legs. Kurogiri used his mist to shield him from more shots until 13 pushed through the pain. And tried to capture them with Black Hole. Though not before Kurogiri could. Portal away most of Shigaraki. His head still sticking out. I may have failed to kill you this time, but your days are numbered. All Might. Symbol of peace. I am going to kill you. He said before. The rest of him disappeared into the portal and that too followed them to wherever they went. Black Hole was turned off shortly after. Start talking, nerd, growled a familiar voice. Kirishima and Todoroki were both putting in their 2 cents, but I couldn't focus on what they were saying. How the hell am I going to get out of this one? It's all right, Midoriya better just rip the band-aid off. All Might said, while the dust receded, revealing his emaciated form. Who are you? Kirishima asked. That's All Might. I panned while shifting back to my normal self. The 3 sets of widening eyes and head whipping would be more funny if it were any other situation. Guys, I can see Smintos coming, why don't I expla? In while we make our way to the entrance. I offered while looking at All Might to see if he approved me taking over story time. The slight nod of his head was all I needed. Don't leave anything out, Kacchan snarled, more out of reflex than any actual hostility. And with that the four of us walked towards the ridiculously tall stairs while I recounted a downplayed version of the truth. I didn't go into detail of how bad the injury was, just that it was slowing him down. Given he's almost 50 years old, that's believable. It even ties into why he's started teaching at UA nicely. No super secret quirks, missing organs or hidden successors here. The rest of the day passed by in a haze. At least for me. That day I learned what pros can really do and what they fight against to keep people safe. A revelation I wasn't prepared for. Yet I survived, despite being cut in half. I should probably be more freaked out about that, but I'm not. Is it because of the lack of any permanent damage, or is it something inherently wrong with me? Regardless, my thoughts weren't focused on my own psychology but rather how outclassed I was by both the pros and the villains. Sure, I held my own against Nomu, but that was it. I held out. All Might, however, defeated it with the leftovers from One for All, while I was only able to hold out with the entire Quirk and my own on top of it. Logic wasn't helping. The W. 8 in my chest and the constriction in my throat. And the hits just keep on coming. When I finally got home after talking with the police and teachers, Mom tells me that my dad is coming tomorrow. Let me clarify. My mom and dad dated for a while until his work overseas dragged him back. While they didn't change their contact information, they drifted apart fast. Apparently with how obsessed he was. As with his job, Mom decided it was better not to tell him she was pregnant. Nurses get such good benefits. Now though, he called her out of the blue and said he's finally able to take a break more regularly and asked if he could visit. Mom replied with, "I have a son, I'm single and sure, same address." Then hung up. Guess even adults sometimes don't know how to handle these things. He texted back that he would be coming by at lunchtime. The unexpected 2 days off from school was supposed to be for us to rest after what happened, not wade through family drama. All morning all I could think about was what was he like. Questions I never bothered to ask because I was too busy training my quirk were now flooding my mind. The video of All Might's debut was playing in the background, keeping me from venturing too far down the rabbit hole. The knock on the door seemed louder than normal. Before I could stop myself, I was leaving my room and staring down the hallway to the open door of our apartment. I knew he was American, but seeing him in person drove that fact home. It was strange to see pieces of my face on someone else's. His hair, while black, had the same curl to it as mine. His eyes though were an Arctic blue, like a wolf in the tundra. When those wolf eyes met mine, his face slackened. I was probably doing the same. Wordlessly he walked past Mom and towards me, showing how tall he is. I'm pushing 6 feet, but he's still got more than a few inches on me. We just stood there for what felt like forever. Then he moved. It was so sudden that I didn't know what happened until his hand was around my throat. My back slammed into the wall and my feet off the ground. "What did you do with Inko's son, you metal motherfucker?" he shouted. I did say hits, as in plural, right. Thanks for watching.